Hello everyone. In today's tutorial, I want to be going over trim sheets. Trim sheets are something that have been used in a lot of games for a pretty long time, so they aren't anything that's super new, which is why I'm surprised that there isn't a crazy amount of information out there on them, let alone there being videos on them. So in this first segment of this tutorial, I'm going to be going over what trim sheets are and showing you a little bit of my Blender scene setup before we really start to get into the tutorial. So on this image here, you can see this large feudal Japan kind of roof structure over here. And this entire structure here uses this one texture trim sheet. The trim sheet is just like any other standard texture you would have, but you mask out different sections on the texture that contain different elements, like these ornaments at the bottom, these leaves, these little slates, and so forth. And then you would map these to wherever you want. And on this image here, you can see I have a color code here, so you can see what segments on the texture over here are mapped over here to the large 3D model. And this workflow is really good because it allows you to create a very large variety of assets using just one texture. And if you can't have too many textures for file size reasons in game, then that's very nice. And it's also just a really good workflow because you don't have to make any high polys or bake, and you can just make a lot of assets. So let me close this, and I'm going to take a look at my Blender view right now. Now, inside my Blender set here, I have a folder called pre-tutorial. That's basically everything I made before doing this tutorial, but we're going to be working in a different folder here in a moment. The main thing here is that I have each of my sections cut up. So I have one big object here called the roof. That's inside the 8M roof folder here. I have another section called the 6-meter roof. Then I have these corner arches, and then I have the top ridge. So each of those are broken into their own folder with one called _mod, and that means it has modifiers on it. Because not all the modifiers behave perfectly. I have some Boolean modifiers I'm using to cut these up, which can create some geometry, as you can see right here, that splits off. So I have to duplicate the entire section and then paste it somewhere else, then combine it all into one model with the modifiers already applied, then do just a little bit of cleanup, and then it's ready to be exported. And that's what I have going on inside here. So I'm going to close that now. And then the other folders here that you will care to make is you might want to have a ref folder here. This folder just contains a avatar of a human, and I actually got this avatar by exporting out from Marvel's Designer. So if you have Marvel's Designer, you can just use the default avatar inside that and tell it to export the avatar. Now there's plenty of free avatars you can find online to use as reference for size. I have another folder here called Lights, and that just contains this one sun lamp that I use. Currently in my viewport, if you go up to shading, I have it on the third option, which is look dev. Then you go to shading, and I chose this second HDR here. I have the background set to 1, and I have scene lights turned on. So I will be turning scene lights kind of on and off as I go, depending on how I want to be working. And then I have another folder here called material planes. And then material plane just contains 2 planes with my materials on them. And I used a total of 2 materials on the structure, even though they are actually both the exact same texture sheet, so that one has the opacity mask on for using depth or decal shaders. And I'll be going over that once we get to that segment in the tutorial. Let's go ahead and minimize this. And that should be all for the overview now. So on the next segment, I will go into how to get your textures the way I have them and importing them into Blender. Alright, so it's time to go over how I got my textures. So first thing you're going to do before we get to this point is I download the textures from GameTextures.com. But you'll notice that my textures are quite a bit different than what is shown by default on here. So we have a default material preset for all of our materials that you can download. And so if I download it as, say, inside the World Creator 2 Unreal Blender format, it'll be where the default is. But if you want to tweak this some and change out what materials are where or adjust any of the parameters we have it available in the substance format. So for my case, I wanted to change these materials out, so I downloaded the substance format. After you download that, I put it inside a folder, and usually this is in my projects folder. So I have my project folder here where scenes is where my Blender files where I'm going to do the modeling. Modules is where I'm going to export my roof modules. Now pics is just a folder I have where I composite pictures for the ArtStation post. But textures is where you'll create a folder and label what each texture is. I have two others here, but I'm not using those. Those are just something I had here while I was testing with them. The first one is the Feudal Japan multi-trim. Now if we go in here, you'll see I have quite a bit of extra things in here that you won't have. For example, a render folder. That's the folder I use to render out this material for display purposes. But the main thing is you want to drop in your Feudal Japan multi-trim 01 SBSAR in here. And then you're going to open up a new substance file and drag that in. So you'll drag in that SBSAR right here. And the first thing you're going to want to do is if you chose the PBR metallic workflow for your graph, you should go ahead and plug them all in here. And the setup I have here is that each output is feeding into a levels node. And I use that just kind of as a placeholder node so I can have it route to here, then branch off rather than branching off from here. It makes it a bit more cleaner. But this one feeds up here where I normally have the base color node, but I realized I didn't need it since I only need one. So base color just feeds into base color here. But you still want to have that levels node here because you may want to change the bit depth from these levels node. So I have all mine locked at 8-bit since I really don't need 16-bit. And then the normals node also feeds in here, and this one I don't have changed because I'm actually going to change that down here when I fed that in. So that also goes to 8-bit. Now I did this format for going to the Unreal Engine. You may want to change that depending on what you're going to. For example, I have my normal map in DirectX format. If you're going to Uni, you'd probably want to use OpenGL. And the levels node here is for the roughness, and there's the metallic and the ambient occlusion. Now I often use the MRAO or Mr. AO format, which is where you take your roughness, your metallic, and your ambient occlusion and plug it into an RGBA merge accordingly. So metallic goes into the red channel, roughness goes into the green channel, and ambient occlusion goes into the blue channel. And that creates MRAO. And then you just want a solid uniform white plugged into the alpha. But you can double click the inputs here to see what's where. So that's the metallic channel. This is the roughness. And this is the ambient occlusion. Now by default, like I said, this will have many different materials on it. The way you can change that is to double click the SBSAR and you have parameters here on the right. And there's a lot of things you can change. But the only things I actually changed was the material here. So if you set this to how I have it here, you should have an identical to material with what we're working with. And the other option is I had turned on transparency to enable it to output the transparency. And that transparency is going to go into the opacity down here, where we will export out a opacity mask, and that will be used for the deferred decal shader. I believe that covers everything here. I don't think I changed anything else. Alright, that's all good. So once you export those out, you'll export them out right here. So the maps you should have exported is base color, MRAO, normal, and opacity. I have these two extra maps here, which were just used for me to create that kind of color mask ID for the picture in the last segment. So don't worry about these two maps. And then after that, I will create a new folder up here. So I created one called Material Planes by hitting this little box up here called a collection. We'll turn that on. And you can see I have two planes here. So on this plane here, if I go to the Material tab, I have it labeled as Feudal Japan Multi-Trim 1. If I drag right here, I can go into the shader editor. Let me drag this over a little bit more. So to plug in your textures, you just want to take the base color and plug that into base color. Now for your MRAO, you're going to want to split these up using the separate RGB. So metallic comes out of red, and then the roughness comes out of green. And there's no ambient occlusion slot currently inside the Blender Cycles or Eevee, so I just don't bother. Plus, I'm going out to a game engine anyway, so I don't really care how much it looks in here. But with Eevee, it's nice to be able to see your material some. And you also want to set this to non-color data. And then with the normal map, you also want to set to non-color data so it doesn't affect any of the values. And that will also need to go into a separate RGB and then a color ramp in the green channel. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm flipping the green channel because Blender is OpenGL, and it's going to want a reverse normal map compared to what I would want to put into Unreal Engine. So if you have a color ramp and you plug that in, you can click this little down arrow here and hit flip color ramp. And that will cause the value to inverse. Then you just need to recombine it, and now you have your normal map flipped. Then just plug that straight into normal map node and plug that in, and you're all good to go. Now the other material I have here, it's not as straightforward to get this opacity to working, because at the very end here, this is identical as the first material. The only difference is at the very end, I have a mix shader with a transparent at the top slot, and then non-color data, and this is my opacity mask going into the control here. And by default, this will probably appear all solid black where I have it transparent. So what you need to do is go over here to the right and under settings, change the blend mode. So you want to have it set to alpha clip. Then it should represent what we want. And that should all be good. So let me go ahead and move this back over and close it. And with that, I've already created another folder here called tutorial, because I want to be working here, and every now and then I may go back and reference this previous folder where I was working before. But you'll mostly be inside just one folder with your material planes, your lights, and your ref folder. So on the next segment, I'm going to be going over how we're going to model our first module and map the textures to it. Alright, we're ready to get started on constructing the 8-meter roof. Though before I do that, I'm going to go back to my ref collection here and turn it on. And that's where I have my avatar, which I'm using for size ref. Though since you guys are following the tutorial and can see what size I'm using for everything, you may not need this, though it's always nice to have. But one additional thing I'm going to add inside this collection called ref, and make sure it's highlighted, is I'm going to add in an empty. And Blender 2.8 will add objects on whatever collection is highlighted. So if I add in this plane axes, that's now inside ref here. I'm going to name this center. We're going to be using a lot of modifiers, and modifiers often depend on points to mirror, and sometimes the origins of our objects need to be somewhere else. So when we're doing mirroring and whatnot, I'll usually reference this center empty. And sometimes I'll have a lot of different empties depending on what modifiers I'm using. Let's go ahead and place that in here, and then you can go ahead and turn it off. So let's go ahead and get started with the 8-meter roof. So our texture sheet has been modeled at 2 meters by 2 meters, and I'm going to be using just this small section of the trim for the entire large roof. And I'm also going to show you how you can be offsetting this texture when we make the roof to make sure it doesn't look like it's tiling. So we know that this is 2 meters. So I'm going to go back over here and add in a cylinder that is 2 meters. Let's go to mesh and then cylinder. And I did a lot of testing to figure out what size worked best for me, and I found that 0.08 meters worked well. So I'm going to put that at 0.08, and then I'm going to put this at either 10 or 12. It looks like 12 is a better option. I want to make sure it's kind of even all around and have some vertices on both sides. So that will be one of the kind of roof segments there. Next, I'm going to rotate it by 90 here. And I'm actually going to go ahead and delete the n-gons on the edge here so they're just open. So I know I want this to be 8 meters by 6 meters, the entire roof structure. So if this side would be 6 meters total, that means on the right side there should be 3 meters here. So we should go out to this third line with it. So let's go ahead and move that out. And then we need it to be 8 meters. This needs to be on, not the center here, but 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that would be the very corner of our roof here. And I've accidentally spawned this inside ref, so we should go ahead and move this. So I'm going to click on tutorial here and create a new collection inside tutorial. And this one I'm going to call the roof set or roof modules. You may have hundreds of modules, so it's very important to have lots of organization. So inside roof set, I'll have another structure called 8m underscore roof. And I was holding shift there for the 8, so that became an asterisk. Just want to be over 8. Alright, so now to move it, we just tap M with our object highlighted and then navigate it from here. So I have a tutorial, roof set, 8m roof. And I'm actually going to rename this and put this inside one other collection. It's basically inside 8m roof. I'm going to have one collection called 8m roof underscore mod, which is going to be a version of it that has all the modifiers. Then another version where everything's collapsed and cleaned up a little bit. And the reason for that is if I need to go back and change something, I'm going to want those modifiers to be there. But the modifier geometry itself won't be perfect, so I'm going to have to collapse it and clean it up anyway. You'll see more what I'm talking about later on. Let's go ahead and add another collection, and I can just drag this up into 8m roof. So let's call this 8m underscore roof underscore mod for modifiers. Then drag that in there. All right. So in 8m roof mod, we have this structure right here. And the next part I need to figure out on this roof is a little flat segment that would be in between each of these. So let's go ahead and add an array modifier. And I'm going to put it to constant. And I did a lot of playing around with this too to figure out how big I wanted the gap to be. And I knew that 0.5 didn't look quite right. And let's put this at 0.5. That seemed a bit big to me. I wanted the gap to be kind of about the same size as here. And so 0.25 seemed just way too small and skinny. So I decided on doing 0.33, and I did 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I did a total of 5 threes for it. Because it is an infinite interval, but we can't just go on forever, so I usually put about 5 of them. That seemed like a good number to me. And so now we can array this until we have it all the way at the 8 meters mark. So we need to get to the next one, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So now this whole roof section here is a total of 8 meters, but we really only have to worry about this one section over here. So now I need to figure out the distance between here and here. So to do that, I am going to just hit apply, and then I'm going to hit L on here and here, Control I, and delete all the other faces. Next, I'll go into edge mode by hitting 2, select these 2 faces, and hit F to fill there. Alt A, and then, actually that won't work. So let's select this for here, and hit delete faces by hitting X and then delete. Hit L to select all that and delete that. So now we have just this one section here. And actually I want that to be on the left side. So I'm going to select it and hit scale X -1. And that's not quite what I want. Let's see where it's scaling at. It's scaling about the active element, so we want to change that to median point. And then it should scale about the origin. So scale X -1. No, it's still not scaling at the right point. Let's go out and then scale on -1. All right, and so let's hit Control A, rotation and scale. And we'll also probably need to hit Shift N to fix the normals on it. So the other thing here is that we have a 3-way kind of joint here on the polygons. So I am actually going to select this and hit V, and that should be able to rip it, or it can't. So to fix that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add this section here and then delete this face. And then to get it back over here, I'm going to click on this edge first, then this edge, and change it to active scaling. So active element, then if I scale upon X and then 0, it's gone back over but isn't actually joined to it. So we'll actually go ahead and select this once more and let it just penetrate just a little bit. the overall will actually be, actually, let me change this up just a little bit. So I just remember there was something I wanted to do differently on this workflow. So I'm going to delete those and then actually rejoin these. And I can do that by selecting all of it, right-clicking, and then selecting Remove Double Vertices. Now these are joined again. And so that is our one roof segment. So we're going to add back that array modifier. And I'm going to put it back to constant and put it at 0.3333, 4, 5. I'm going to turn on merge, so it merges the vertices. And then I'm going to up that to whatever it was before to get to a total of 8 meters. So that's 4 meter, 5 meter, 6, 7, 8. And this is the very corner of it where it's going to be cutting. And I don't want to cut directly on one of these poles. I want to kind of cut on one of the flat edges here. So let's try moving this over just a little bit. And I'm going to put this at, let's see, this is probably a 0.333 move, or it should be 0.25. So let's do GX 0.25. And that's not quite right. Let's do GX 0.165. So GX 1.65 is half of 0.333. So the more 3s you have, the more 6s you have. So with 5 3s, it should be 0.16665. Though 0.165 is honestly close enough. We don't need to be truly perfect here, but I like to try to say somewhat accurate. All right, so I'm going to have that right there in the center and make sure this is still going across, and it is. So next thing we need to do is array this a little bit further to be going to the center. But we need this whole structure at an angle first, slanted like a roof. So what I'm going to do is click these 2 vertices here. Actually, a quick way to do this is just to select all the vertices, hit GUI, hold down Control, snap it forward, hit G and go back, then G, Y, Control, snap it back. And now I have that origin right at the beginning where I want it to be pivoting and rotating about. All right. So now let's go ahead and close that array modifier. I'm going to go and rotate this by 30 degrees. And then I want to make sure it's going all the way up. But before I do that, I want to add in my Boolean structure that's showing what structure this whole roof is going to be. So I am going to, with the roof mod, I'm going to call this, rename this to main. Let's call it 8M underscore roof. Keep messing it up, 8M underscore roof underscore main. So it's kind of like the main roof section here. I'm going to do a quick save. And now I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift A and add a new mesh, a cube. For this, I want to be, let's see, scale X by 4. So now it's nice and long over there. And then I'm going to go into face selection mode and just do GUI and Control to snap. So let's do GUI and Control to snap again. All right. And this is going to be clipping past a little bit more, so I'll be moving this corner here to here in a moment. But before I do that, I want to scale these parts inward. So let's grab just this edge here and move it in. All right, and I believe this should go right here, perfectly diagonal. All right, so this intersection here is going to be 4 meters right here. And then these need to move out some. So let's go to GY here, then GX here. Same thing with this one. GY out to here, then GX to here. Then I'm going to grab this whole top face and move it up really high. And then I'm going to call this the 8M underscore roof underscore bool. And this is going to be our Boolean object. And to get this to look a little bit better, we go to this little tab here and down to the viewport display and set it to display as wire. Now it's displaying as a sort of bounding box. Next thing I'm going to want to do is go back to modifiers here where I have array and add a second array. Though this one I just need to change from 0 here to I believe 1 here. And there we are. So now our roof is going all the way up to this section here. I'm going to turn merge on so it stays together. And, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Make sure you don't apply your rotation and scale, which you usually want to eventually do. But because you're going to be duplicating this whole structure and then applying everything, we'll do it then. Though even then, we're just going to be exporting out, which it won't take into account the rotation scale. Just make sure you don't change it, otherwise it's going to mess things up. Okay, so we have this section here. So I'm going to want to add a lattice deformer to make this bend down and drape some, kind of like the original roof. And in order to do that, we're going to need a bit more geo on this section. So I'm going to add a, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go with just 4 on this. I really don't need much more than that. It's such a large object. And all right, I'm going to hit 7, 5 to see where this is right now in the structure. And that doesn't look quite right. This should be going a little bit down here more, should it not? It does look like it's going perfectly diagonal, though I'm not sure why. So this is going by 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, 3. Ah, that's why. So we need to move this actually back one more. So let's go to the top, GY, and then back. Then we need to get these ratios to be the same. So let's see, this is going down by 4, and then this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we need to figure out how to get this at a better arrangement. We're going dark and diagonal. So I don't think I have the others quite like that. So I think the easiest way to do this is to just move this right back. So let's look here and here. Right, and maybe I actually don't have this at the perfect diagonal there. Do I? No, I do. All right. Oh, I actually just had this all the way out too far. So that should actually be right at that location. Okay, now that is good. We'll be able to extend it out a little bit more, and actually I'll do that just by selecting here. So I turn back on my old roof here, because I don't want this to be clipping at all. I'm just going to select this face here and extrude upon Y. So now we make sure I'm not clipping off that edge there, but if I hit 7 and look at this, I should be able to move this down 1. Let's move this to here. And I guess this does go a lot skinnier down to 2 meters then. I thought it was at 4 meters, but I guess I was wrong. So let's move this back to G and then a Y. And then scale it upon X by 2. Actually by 0.5. Let's do scale X 0.5. All right, and there we have it. Yes, that's more the correct size. I can actually go back and check my ref here to see what I had on back in my pre-tutorial folder just to make sure. And it looks like I have that. Yeah, I had that at 2 meters. I don't know why I thought I had 4. All right, let's go to the tutorial here. Our main roof bool. So we can actually go ahead and move this back forward by some. So let's move that up to here and then grab this and snap it on X by 1. And also snap this on X by 1. All right, that's perfect. Yes, now it's perfect. So let's go into looking at how we're going to do our lattice modifier. So we've added our geo here. So next thing it should be the lattice and then the Boolean. So let's go ahead and add a lattice. So hit Shift A and then locate lattice, and you'll have this cube here. Now it's important that we do all our manipulation of this object while inside of just regular object mode. We don't want to do any scaling inside the edit mode like this. So let's go ahead and move this to the correct position on this whole structure. So I'm going to move that right here, and then we will rotate it upon X by 30, since 30 is the number we originally used there. And then I'm going to hit GY and then Y again for the local area and move it by 0.5. Now I should be able to select these 4 points here, and I'm going to want to move the origin. So I hit Shift S, I should be able to do cursor to selection. Cursor to selected. And yes, it does work in the lattice. I wasn't sure if I could remember or not. Then we're just going to right click the lattice and should be able to move the origin. Or actually, maybe we can't move the origin on the lattice. Yeah, I don't think we can. I don't know why I thought we could. But that doesn't matter. So I'm going to just scale this upon X. And it's already 1, so we need it to be a total of 8 across. Or it's 2. So we want to do it on... Okay, so it is 1. So scale that by 8 on X. And yes, that is correct. We're going to make it a little bit bigger than what this whole structure here is. Yeah, so that should be good. Then scale Y. Let's do this by, let's see, 3 or 4. Let's do it by 4, then hit G, Y, Y, hold down Control and move it. And that looks not good. And why is that? Let's put this back to median point. And it looks like the rotation on this is wrong. Why is that? Let's look back at our rotation on here. So we have the rotation at 30. The rotation on this is 40. I don't know how that happened. So I'm going to put this back by 0.5 negative. Now set to 30. And now we should be good. So I'm just going to control snap it here, then scale upon Y, Y. And I think I'm just going to do a standard scaling here to get it close enough. All right, and that looks good. It's actually encompassing everything here. Now I'm doing this slightly different than the first one, where I have this section here clipping out. So I think what I might want to do is also make it larger left and right. Let me take a look at this. We will try that and see how it goes, that we may need to make a little bit of editing later, though we shouldn't. I'm going to scale that up just a little bit to actually be on the outside too. And our other option is we could add some geo to the center here. Let's open that up. All right. So now in order to actually get better deformation on our lattice, we need more lines going across endpoints to be able to edit. So let's go over to our lattice options here and up, I believe, is it V? Yes, so it's V and not W, but U. So I believe I put this at 5. So now we have all these points we can manipulate with the lattice. So to start our lattice, let's go back to our object here. And I just realized our lattice is inside pre-tutorial now. So I need to actually move this down to 8mroof_mod. All right. Let's do 8m_roof_lattice. I know it's part of that modifier set. Now select the roof, go to modifiers, and then add a lattice modifier. And that should be right here. Now we just need to pick our lattice and select it. As you can see, nothing has happened yet because we haven't edited anything on it. So I want this whole structure to basically be sloped down. So let me select my lattice here, and I'm going to select these 3 points here, these 3 points here, these 3 here. So basically I'm selecting a total of 12 points here, this whole kind of section right here. I need to make sure I get the back side too. All right, now I'm going to do G and then Z, and I'm going to move it down a little bit, not too crazy. So I'm doing it by -0.3. Maybe a little bit more. I think I like that. All right, and then I'm going to grab this kind of center section here and move that down just slightly more. All right. And now then, to make sure that these actually tilt up a little bit more at the end, I'm going to select all of these. at the very end, and we're going to rotate that whole section so we can curve it some. I'm going to rotate it on X. So like this. So now that's all facing upwards a little bit more how I want it. So you can get pretty creative with this whole structure here using lattices. I'm going to move this down a little bit more. Let's grab these and make a lot of what you want. So, okay, so I think that's the curvature I want. The last modifier is going to be the Boolean modifier. And I can go back to any of the previous modifiers and mess with if I need to. So I want this to intersect, and I'm going to choose my big 8M roof underscore bool. So now we can see here we have the nice top part of the roof section, which makes the second part of the roof section a lot easier because we just need to duplicate this and it can use all the exact same modifiers it's already using, which is very nice. There will probably be some messed up geometry, but actually looks like the geometry is cutting very cleanly now. Wasn't doing that the first time. So on the next section, I will go into texturing this and then starting up on the bottom part of this roof, and then the 8M roof will be complete. So now we're going to start texturing this main roof section, and we're also going to fix the normals on it. And after that, we'll add the next segment, which is the end cap, and I'll also go under a little bit, depending on how far you want it to go. So first thing I'm going to do is actually open up a new window here on the side, and then I'm going to select right here and open up the UV editor. And next I can load in the base color or something for my trim sheet to kind of see where everything is. So if I hit tab onto this, I can see that this was a 2 meter section, so it should fit perfectly right about here. So I'm going to hit unwrap, go to the right and hit G then Y, and then hold down Control to snap it. And actually I really don't need to snap it, I can have it somewhere around here. Alright. And then next we need to preview this on the material. So let's go to our material over here and add what I already had before, which is the Feudal Japan multi-trim. Alright, so now we have it plugged in, and I think I may turn off the scene lights here for just a moment. Actually, I'll turn those back on. But we have our material here, but there's two things we need to fix. Number one, we need to fix the normals on this, and we also need to change the shading on it. So let's go ahead and fix the shading. So let's right click and hit shade smooth, though we don't want these sections here to be smooth. That creates this kind of odd normals. So to fix that, what I'm going to do is go into, actually let's change it from over here. We should be able to change this to be auto smooth and then set the angle to how we want it. Though this will not export the normals like this quite yet. We need to do a little bit more editing. So let's get this up to, say, 45 degrees. Alright, so anything sharper than 45 degrees we mark sharp. So now if we add custom split normals, it should have those all marked. And yes, they are marked. So another way to do that is just click the edges and hit Control E and then mark sharp. Alright, so now if we go back into shaded view, this looks a lot better. Though, to break up the tiling more, we have this very small section here. So you can see right on each of these we have the same texture. It's not too noticeable on this texture, but it can be on others, and it is pretty noticeable from a distance. So to fix that, we just simply go over to the modifier on here and go to the initial array modifier. Then on here we can see we have a UVs option. So I believe it's U that we want to edit more. Yes, here it is. So if I put this to, say, something like 0.25 or more, and actually it doesn't really matter which one it's at, but if you want to randomize it up a little bit, and maybe not quite at 0.5, let's do 0.3. I think that would be a good amount of randomization. So now you can see it's a lot harder to make out the tiling. And then you could combine vertex painting inside your engine to add grunge or wherever on different maps. And once you cover this up with even more assets, so you had fallen leaf assets on it, it would hide it even better. And that's how you can have a very small section of a texture cover a large area. Normally you would see something like this and think you need to create a full tiling material. but with the right geometry and UVs, you can make a lot out of a small portion of a texture. So with that completed, I believe we are ready to go ahead and add the next bottom section here. So let me select this and decide how I want to be modeling in this. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to turn off a few of these for now. So I'm going to turn off the Boolean, and you click the little monitor icon there, and I'm going to turn off the lattice. Next, I'm going to select this and hit duplicate. And then I'm going to just grab all these vertices at the very end and hit Control I and delete these. And next I'm going to hit E and extrude and double tap Y. And because we haven't applied our rotation or scaling, this still shows here perfectly. And I believe the other array. So we actually don't need our second array modifier here, the one that's making an array this way. This is just going to be on the very end. So I'm going to go over here and delete that. And this will be the modifier stack we use. And we already have the other two combined. So if I just turn these on, it's exactly where it needs to be, which is very nice. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. So I believe I want this to be a cylinder piece here. So let's go ahead and actually, I'm going to change the rotation of this real quick. So we had rotated by 30 degrees before, so I'm going to hit RX -30. That's perfectly flat. And then I'm going to hide this main roof section. And I'm going to rename this to be 8M roof underscore, say, end cap. All right. Now I want to grab this piece here and extrude it a little bit more. But actually, I think what I will do for this is grab right here and hit V to rip this off. And then I'm going to grab this whole section here and I'm going to delete that. Grab this whole section here, but then make this vertex active. And I'm going to change the pivot to be the active element. Now I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate, then SZ -1 to invert that. And then next I'm going to go ahead and hide that real quick so it doesn't combine them. But I want to right click and do remove vertices, and so it should do a total of 2. And yes, it did. And then I hit Alt H to bring back that geometry. And I hit it there just so it didn't combine that one piece there. Next I can then select these segments and extrude these out. Let's extrude it out to about right here. And this structure is a little bit different from the one I did originally. I just want to do something a bit different for this, or something I wish I had done from the beginning. So we'll put that right there. And now for this segment, what we will do is just extrude this down for now. And this won't be the final structure here, but we'll do some more modeling on this after we actually UV map it, and you'll see why in a moment. So let's go ahead and do the UVs on this section here. So I think I want the seam to be, say, on the right here. That'd probably be the less likely area to see it. So let's mark seam. Let's also mark the seam here. So first I'm going to UV unwrap this section by just hitting U and unwrap. And over the UV editor, you can just scale it down and put it onto one of the circles that you want. So let's find the one I had done before. And it looks like this is actually rotated incorrectly. Let's go into front view and do unwrap from view. And now it's rotated correctly. All right. So I'm just going to put this as close to the center of this as possible. You can take a little bit of finicking around. I'm going to scale it up a bit so we kind of have the edge bevel here. And it's not going to be mapped truly perfectly, but it's going to be close enough, and people aren't going to notice this unless they're smushing their face right against it. I wouldn't worry too much about extremely small details like this when you're doing environments, because in the grand scheme of your environment, it is a very small element. And on most games, if you were to zoom in on just about anything, you'll see little details like that. And there's some weird stuff happening here, and that's because we still have our array modifier from the before, changing the U offset. Let's put that back to 0, and now all of those are fixed. Next, I'm going to grab this section up here and unwrap it. And this I want to rotate by 90 and put here, and also scale that quite a ways down. All right, and get a somewhat similar textile density. There is an add-on that I usually use for checking textile density, though I don't have it installed right now. I have to go find and download it. But as long as you're within ballpark range, you should be good. You know, the general rule for me is to not scale anything up insanely high. So if this is 2 meters by 2 meters, I probably wouldn't want to take one of these little symbols and scale it by like 20. That'd be ridiculously huge. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn on auto smooth on these segments. And actually auto smooth is already on. We just need to hit shade smooth and then it will look at the auto smooth. All right, so there we have it. And it looks like this might need to, we need to clear the custom split normals, up this a bit. And why is this still shaded hard? Whoops, I hit 1 on the keyboard and turned everything on. Back to this, let me turn off the roof main. I'm not quite sure it's not shading quite correctly. It's most likely because of the UV seams here. Ah, I know. I need to hit Shift in on here to correct the normals because I had scaled that down so it got inverted. There we go. Let's turn this back on. I'm going to keep it at, say, 70 here for the angle on the right. So that looks much better now for the end cap pieces. Next here, I also want these matte. So I want this matte to the large gold section up here. Let's put that around here. And let's scale it down quite a bit. Let's go up a bit. All right. Then for this section, we are going to try to match this part right here. So let's see how we do with that. So I'm going to scale it down over the UV editor and put it kind of right on top. And I may need to extend it a bit more. All right. I'm going to get as close as I can. So it looks like it's not quite long enough. So let's grab right here and move this down a bit. And it's always better to go longer than too shorter. So I'm going to put this a lot longer and then actually hit U and unwrap and put it back in that same spot again. So let's do R90, move it down. And it's going to go off the bottom of the UV set a little bit, but that's fine. Let's get this pretty close as we can. All right, I think I'm happy with that. What I think I'll also do here is scale this up some, and I'm going to do it upon this edge up here. Actually, more like this face. Let me think. I believe this will work. I want to select right here and scale upon X sum. And since it's on active element, so actually I want to do scale shift Y. Yes, and that's scaling the amount I want. I want this to clip into the right a little bit here. Okay, that should be good. And we'll extend this section right here a little bit more in a moment. And actually, maybe I do want to have that scaled a little bit more to where it's actually fully clipping in. All right, I think I like that. So now what we'll do is just trim this off some. So the way I'm going to do that is go into my front ortho view, and let's see where this lines. So this appears directly dead center here on it, or just about. It's a little bit off, but it's close enough. So then I'm going to do the same thing over here and put this one right about there. And same thing over here. You don't need to be perfectly exact, just get close enough. I'm going to put one, and actually I don't need one there. But I do want another one at kind of the bottom of these arches here. All right. Then another one at the bottom of this arch here. Same thing over here. So now I'm just going to select these vertices and type GG to slide. And if you have correct UVs on, it'll correct the UVs. Let's move all these up some. So once that vertex is in there, I know it'll be safely clipped off, so it'll look nice. Oh, it's a bit weird. All right, looks good there. I may actually want to hit Control Z and move those back. So I'm going to keep them out a little bit further. As you can double tap G and slide them in, but you can't slide them back out. So I try not to overshoot. So I want to see how these are going to look first. I may need to do these individually here. So let's slide this one up and see how it looks. And this one, you could be using a mirror modifier here, but I found this was just a little bit easier. It didn't make too big of a difference. All right, so let's slide this to the right some and then back more towards it. I'm going to do the same thing with this piece here. Slide to the right and slide up and maybe slide back this way some. That's about in the right part. And let's slide this straight up and get at the bottom there. Slide this segment up, and then slide this segment up. All right, and I'm happy with how that is looking. So something else we could do here is also make this angle down a little bit. So that way the actual other roof segment will be tilting in, but we'd also need to make sure we change the other roof section at the top. And I'll add quite a few more vertices, but it's not that bad. So let me see, should I do that? And how many vertices would that add? So let's go ahead and collapse this at the last. And that is not what I want. Let's actually slide these to the very end. And in a moment we will remove vertices. Same thing with this one. You just slide it until it slides no more. Actually, it might be better to put those all at the center here. Yeah, let's do that. So let's take all of these and slide them in. Take these, slide them in. Take these, slide them in, and just keep doing that. So select these, move them inward. Next ones, and this is the last set. All right, then hit L to have all these highlighted, and right click and do remove double vertices. And then let's go ahead and move this straight down, and we can re-extrude this segment out. Think about how I'm going to do that. So let's just go ahead and delete this section up here until we have this part more how we want it. So I want to map that about right there. Or let's go down a little bit more. Actually, more like that is how I like it. And actually, that's not that big of a difference. I think I may just keep it how I had before. This is how I had it the first time. So I think I'll keep it like that there. But if you did want to kind of add this and curve it down more, you need to make sure you turn back on your other roof here, and then rotate this by 30 degrees, and then kind of do that same sectioning here so it matches up perfectly. As you'll be combining these together later. But I'm happy with how this looks here. So let's go and rotate this by 30 degrees now. RX and then 30. And the only thing we need to do now is make this tuck under a little bit more. So the way I'm going to do that is select all of this. So hit Control. And then I'm going to do EYY, and I'm going to hold on Control. So that is exactly 1 unit in. So next I'm also going to grab these vertices. And that if I hit Z, I can go to wireframe, make sure it's not selecting that. All right. Let's go back to look dev mode. And then hit E, Z, or it's YY, and then 1. So now all of this has been moved in. The only thing we need to do on this section now is add a bit of division. So let's see, I had 1, 2 there, so I need to add about the same amount. Let's do 1, 2, and then 1, 2. Alright, so that's how this section here looks now. Just like that. And those divisions there are so it can actually bend correctly as I turn it. But now we just need to UV unwrap these, and they are exactly 1 meter since I did it by 1 meter. So that means we need to clip it to be 0.5 the size it's going to be. And you may want this to go even further up depending on where your buildings are. Ideally, these would go in by, say, 1 meter, and then you'd have geometry like walls coming down from here. But you may want these just to flat out go all the way in or go in by 2 meters. And 2 meters would make the size a bit more easier for us to make accurate. If I can just unwrap this, rotate by 90, scale by 0.5 since it unwrapped to be 2 meters long, but it's actually only 1 meter, and just move it up here to the roof section. All right, and now I'm going to hit Alt and hold down Shift while I'm left clicking those to grab all of them. And that looks good to me. All right, and then I'm going to hit Unwrap, scale by 0.5, and move up on Y. I'm going to put that right there. Okay, and I am happy with that. So now let's turn on all our modifiers and see how this looks. And if it looks good, then should be all done with the modifier version of this. So let's go over to the modifiers tab and turn these on. Then we need to go to this one and turn all of its modifiers back on. And it should match up perfectly. Sweet, and that does match up perfectly. It even clips right there, good. All right. So I'm very happy with how that looks now. And with that, we are done for the modifier version of this. I think I'll go to the end after I do the others, and then I'll turn them into the regular asset. But essentially, once you have it like this, and supposedly it's all clean, you want to select everything, hit Shift-D, and move it just out of this collection to be in this collection, and then collapse all the modifiers and join it into a single object. Now with Boolean modifiers here, we might be getting some strange edges going here, which just don't automatically display. But for whatever reason, this time it's doing a very clean cut, which did not happen on the first time I went through this process. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and close this since we're not going to be needing to do any more for a while. Alright, so I'll see you in the next segment where we start on the 6 meter roof. Alright, so now we're ready to get started on the 6 meter roof. Though I did just notice something on this roof I did not like, and I forgot that I did this the first time to actually fix it. But I want these lines to be matching up all the way across. So I believe I put this at a value of 0.25. It does match up perfectly all across, but the texture is still being arrayed to different sections. Now I'm actually going to go turn the light back on so you can see that a bit better. Alright. So now in order to do the 6 meter roof, we can actually just duplicate this whole segment and move it over. In the end, all of our assets are going to be located in about this position, but while I'm building it, I'll move and rotate them around, and at the end, move them back before I export out to Engine. So let's go ahead and grab this entire structure actually, and before we do that, this is the 8 meter roof, so I want to click on Roof Set here, and then add a new collection. And call this the 6m_roof. Then inside of 6m_roof, I add another folder or collection and type 6m_roof_mod, since this will be the section that has all the modifiers. And why add a 0.001? There is no other 6m_roof_mod. Okay, I'm not sure why I did that, but it's fixed now. So I'm going to actually turn off the light before I do this to make sure there's nothing else here on the seams. I'm going to be hitting A to select all. So I also want to make sure I have my material planes turned off. And then I'm just going to hit Shift-D, M, and then we're going to navigate down to the tutorial, roof set, 6m_roof, 6m_roof_mod. Then I'm going to go back and turn off the 8m roof, but I'll be turning it back on every now and then. So if we look at the top view, we can see that this roof should be ending right about on the correct section. Let's see where this goes. And actually, it looks like this isn't lined up quite perfectly. Why is that? I must have messed up already somehow. And I have. These aren't snapped in the correct spot. I don't know why. So let's go ahead and fix that then, since we've managed to mess that up. I'm going to turn back on my 8M roof. I want to make sure these are right in the correct spot. So the way I'm going to do that is just right click here, or actually I'm going to hit Shift S and do cursor to world origin. Then I'm going to hit N and move this left and right by a meter. I'm going to put the location on X to be 1. Now I'm going to go here and do 3D cursor. So it's snapping to that. And I'm going to grab these two vertices and do GX0. And why is that not? Oh, scale X0 is what I want. And now I've hit 7. So now it's going perfectly diagonal. I'm not sure how I did that at the beginning. So now let's put this location of 3D cursor to -1. And grab these points and do scale X0 here too. Alright, so now that is perfect. Now we're going to grab all this, hit Shift D, and then move down to tutorial roof set 6M roof mod. So now it's there. And that should be the only one that's actually selected. Let's go ahead and hide all of that. And as you can see, I can move the whole structure around. So I'm going to go to the top view here, and I'm going to move the 3D cursor back to the world origin. And then I'm going to rotate Z90 on that. And then I'm going to hit GX, move that here, then GY and move this up. So now this section will be right where the other 8M roof is. You can see that matches perfectly. Though, if I want this to be smaller, to be at 6M, I can't have this sitting here quite this perfectly. Let me make sure these are just matching up, actually. And these aren't matching up truly perfectly. Why is that? This didn't happen the first time for the matching, so I'm not sure why it's messing up now. The only thing I can think of is that I don't have my lattice modifier truly symmetrical, which is quite a problem. So I'm going to stop and come back in here and figure out why it's doing this and explain what's going on. Alright, I've done a ton of debugging, but I cannot figure out exactly why this, when I move it around, is not matching up perfectly. I thought it was the lattice modifier. I think maybe one of these points is slightly lower than what it is on the left. It's not perfectly mirrored, but even with the lattice modifier turned off, it doesn't match up quite right. So what I'm going to do is fix it in the way that I also would have had to do anyway on this 6-meter side to get things to match up. Originally, you think I would have just duplicated this, move this over, and then scale the lattice and both down, but that wouldn't work either because the lattices don't stay perfect when you scale them down, and it just wouldn't match up quite well. So I would usually move around, cut it in half, and mirror it, but not do that for this one. But we're going to do that for this one now, since I can't figure out why it's not matching up. So we are going to grab our Boolean object here, and I've changed it a little bit since last time we were recording. It's now going perfectly diagonal instead of going to this point first, then being extruded out a bit. So what we are going to do is take these first ones here and move it all the way to the center. So GX, hold down Control, put target center. Then same thing for this outer one as GX Control, move to the center. Next we're going to add a mirror modifier. So I'm going to do it on the top section here. So let's do add modifier and then go find the mirror. And remember how I added the center empty here, which we could use for this, but we're about to rotate it. So I think I'd rather use something that's going to be sticking with this object, which in this case my lattice will always be stuck with it. So I'm going to use the lattice as my mirroring object. So no matter how I move this whole structure around, it'll stay together. Next, I'm going to grab this section here and do the same thing. So let's add that mirror modifier, mirror object as the lattice, and make sure it's doing merge vertices, blah, blah, blah. All right, and that should be good. And there is the mirroring now on the texture, but it's really not that noticeable, so I'm not going to care about that much. We might be able to flip it. No, then it's going to be going the opposite way. could do that and make it nice and gold. That's not what we want either. I think we'll just have to deal with the offset there, which really isn't that big of a deal, so I really don't care. But you can get some interesting effects here messing around with these. Let's put both of these back, and that is not back. All right, so now they're both at 0, they're back. All right, so let's go take a look at how I'm gonna do this. Right, so I want to grab this entire structure now, hit Shift D. It's now got out. I'm going to go ahead and move it over to the roof set and 6M mod like we did before. Then I'm going to hide the 8M roof here. So now we have just one roof. And then I'm going to rotate it upon 90, and you now have the 3D cursor active. Then hit GX and move it over one, and then GY up one. I accidentally hit H there, which hit it. If I turn back on the old 8M roof, you now see that this matches up truly perfectly vertice per vertice, which is what we want. So since I want this to be shorter, I'm going to, I guess I will keep the 8M roof on, but I'm going to hit the little cursor icon so I can't actually click anything over here. So now I can only click on this roof section here. So let's grab this section and we're going to move it left. Actually, I'm going to hit here and do Alt-M at last. So these two, Alt-M at last, and grab these two and hit GY Control and move it over. So now we have that mirroring, but this one is not going to mirror correctly on this now since the center of this is moved over, and we don't want to touch anything here to mess up how evenly aligned it is. So I'm going to go back to the mirror modifier, and now I'm going to use the center piece, which we're going to have to change when we go back, but it looks like that works best. Let's see where this is. We could actually just go ahead and change the origin of this so it stays in the correct spot. I think I'll do that. So I'm going to click these two words and do Shift S and cursor to selection, or cursor to selected. Then I'm going to go out of mode, right click it, and do set origin to 3D cursor. So that's in the correct spot. Now I'm going to just click each of these and go back to the color picker and then choose that section. All right, let's choose that. And there we go. And so now we have this 6-meter roof here at the end. So we have two roof sections we can use in our module now. So I could duplicate this whole structure and move it all around to have a 8M by 8M roof structure, then make something more protrude up top. I could have just these three here. And you can mess around and play with it to kind of see how they all connect. The other thing you may want to do with this section is have one roof piece that just slopes down but stops right here, then another module that's maybe just 1 meter wide but goes all the way up, and that would be to extend it. So you could have this section here extend, then when you're ready you can cap it off. And that would probably be a much better module section to do here. I'm only making a few modules for this tutorial, and you can do the rest how you see fit. So I think with that, I am happy with both the roofs. So we can go ahead and take this a little bit further just to test it out while we're mapping things around. I can go, let me turn that back on. So let's turn the clicking on. So I'm going to click on this roof here, and I'm going to go into the mirror modifier. And I'm going to add a new one. Or I guess since I'm not really using that much, I could just go ahead and use the center. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to type center here for that empty we had back at the very beginning. So now it's mirroring straight across. And then I can just toggle on Y, and now it's mirroring over to the other side too. This is just so I don't have to duplicate the whole structure and move it around, but we are going to actually export it out with this mirroring on. Let's add center here. Turn on Y also, so now that's over there. And then we're going to do the same thing for this. So I'm going to actually move this back to center then. So let's do center, move that there, and actually turn on a Y here, and then turn this to center, X and Y. So now like that, you could actually just call this a finished asset here, but I want to add a bit more detail on the ridges here like I did in the tutorial and what I showed you at the beginning. So I believe if this is all settled now and done, I am going to go ahead and start on the ridge sections in the top in the next segment. So let's go ahead and do that now. Alright, so let's get started on making the ridges. Now I'm not going to strip, go ahead and just build the top ridge and the side ridges. Instead I'm going to create a new collection called base components. And this is a folder that's going to act as making a bunch of simpler base models that then I'll take to create more complex models using modifiers. It's simply something for the modifiers to reference. So let's go ahead and turn off the 8M roof and 6M roof here. And then inside here with the roof set active, we can click to create a new collection. Here I'm going to call this base underscore components. Alright, and I'm actually going to go back to the 6M roof here and grab this. Make sure I have the right size for this next piece I'm going to build. I'm going to take one of these tubes since my models are going to need those on it and kind of use that as reference. So I'm going to hit Shift D, then M, and move that to tutorial, roof set, base components, and turn that off. Now I can go into here and turn just about everything here off. Let's go ahead and do that. Then do RX and rotate it by 30, but first we need to go back to medium point. So RX 30, so negative 30. And I want to go ahead and hit Shift S to move my cursor back to the world origin. So now I'm going to move this to where the world origin is. So actually I'm going to do that by right clicking and doing Shift S and then do selection to cursor. There we go. So now that should be just about perfectly in the center. Alright. Now I'm going to hit L or go into face mode to select these and delete them. And then I'm going to add a mirror modifier on this to make it a full tube. Now that it's symmetrizing it, we can UV unwrap it again in a moment here. So let's go ahead and do that actually. So I'm going to right click and clear a bunch of stuff. So I probably want to clear the sharp edges. So actually Control E and do clear seam and Control E and clear sharp. And then while in edge selection mode, I'm going to select these edges here, do Control E and mark seam. Alright, it looks like, so this is already mirrored right here, so you could just keep it like this and not UV unwrap it if you want, since this isn't very noticeable, but might as well. Let's go to the UV image editor, and we can add back in our base color texture so we can see what we're doing. Select all, unwrap, R90, and then we can move this left and right here, which may actually not perfectly fit here. Hey, that fits perfectly actually. Alright, now we can go ahead and close that down because we have this UV unwrap, but we're going to open that back up in a moment here when we start modeling. So I want to draw out the shape of the ridge I want it to be. And the way I'm going to do that is first, I'm going to move this up to where about the top of this ridge is going to be. So maybe right around there. A little bit higher. So I think about there is good. Alright. Then I'm going to hit Shift A and add a plane. And I'm going to rename these. So I'm going to call this base underscore ridge underscore say fill. Alright. And eventually we'll combine these together to be one mesh. And then we'll have another piece that we're going to make after make something called a cap. Because we're going to be using the array modifier with a start cap. And that's the other one will be. So let's grab this and scale this down. And I'm going to add another vertice right here and delete the other side, then add a mirror modifier. And I'm going to just draw out on one side to get what I want. Alright, I'm going to turn on clipping for this modifier. So now if I go into front ortho view, I have a much better look at this. So let's go up to about right here, and then up diagonally, say around here, then back up, and then I want this to get kind of tucked in. And I want it to go back out, but a lot sharper. So this whole material right here is going to be slate roofing, then that's where the seam is going to be. It's kind of why I have that tucked under so tightly. So this next section here will be gold. So I'll do that. I think around here is good. Then I want the very top here to go off and around and go straight curve up a bit. So in order to do that, I'm going to do it on X here, and up on Z, say about right there. And then this can just go straight in, however I want it to be. And then another one making going slightly up more. And oh, that's how far in I am. Let me move this in a little bit more. Alright. I think that's the kind of structure I want. Let's see how far. Let's move this up some here. So before I continue on this, I'm going to turn on the 8M roof and then duplicate this and just drag it around to see how it looks in terms of size. Over to that on X. I don't want this to be too crazy big. So I think I want to scale this down overall some. It's a bit too big for my liking. So I'm going to turn off the 8M roof, go back over here, and then I'm just going to scale this down some. So about right there. I think that I am happy with. Let's move this back here. So next thing to do with this is to just select it, hit E, Y, and hold down Control. Bring it all the way back over there. And next I'm going to select these two parts here and hit Control B. And then, and actually, let me, before I do that, hit Control A and apply the rotation and scale. So how much something bevels can be affected by that. So let's move it over here. I'll do this many bevels. Alright. I think that's good for the base structure here. I'm also going to select right here and bevel these just a little bit. And put those down to 1. So just a very small bevel there so they aren't perfectly sharp. I smooth this out. And I think that should be good. Alright. Now let's go ahead and bring back our UV space with the image loaded. Let's load up the Feudal Japan base color. Now we see to map stuff. So first I'm going to map this section here. I would go all the way down to here, but I know this is going to be way too big to fit on a small section. So I'm going to unwrap this. And since this is exactly 2 meters long, you know, this is the perfect textile density here, so it's going to max up to the range. And actually, I need to make sure it's not. Alright. I want to make sure it wasn't stretching it to the bounds or anything in an odd way. So let's move this over on X, and then GY. So I'm going to put that right there. And then we can't see anything in our right now because we have not added our material. So I'm going to add the Feudal Japan Wolf Trim 01 to it so we can actually see what's going on here. Alright. Next, let's grab this piece here and unwrap it. And just slide that on up. Now that piece is good. And let's try to get this to match up as close as we can. So in order to do that, I'm going to need to move it upon X. So about right there. Close enough. Okay. Now let's go ahead and click here, hold down Control and click here, and it will follow that path to all the way up there. And let's hit unwrap. And let's move this piece up. And this one does not quite fit all the way. So there's a few things we could do here. So I'm going to get this as close as I can to right here, then see what's going on the inside. And since this actually covers that segment up, I can just clip it off here. Another way I would have probably approached that is cut it somewhere here so there would be a seam, but I'd try to move this other UV back to as close as possible. It looks like it matches up, but wouldn't be that noticeable. So for this, I'm just going to cut right here and delete this polygon. So now that there is done, now we just need to add the gold, and we do need to model out one more piece that we're going to add on here. And I'm also going to go ahead and shade this smooth. Let's right click and do shade smooth. Let's turn the auto smooth and have this set to say 45. All right, I think that's about what I want. Yeah, 45 is good. And we might delete these pieces down here too, since it looks like they'll never really be visible, but I'll do that later. Actually, I could just duplicate this and rename it to something else. Or I'll do that in a moment if I feel like I need to. So now with these components here selected, I'm going to hit UV unwrap, R90, and just place that here in the gold section. So now I have that here. Next, I want to add some ornaments right here. And the way I'm going to do that is hit Shift A, add a circle. Let's take this down to 8. Let's try 12. I think that might be what I used before. All right, so now with this, I'm going to go ahead and go into edit mode here and fill. Then while I'm in edit mode, I'm going to unwrap it. And I actually want this to be rotated. So I'm going to go into orthographic projection while looking straight down it, hit U and do project from view. So now it's actually rotated correctly here. Then I'm going to move this down over to this big circle icon over here. And to get more accurate, you'll probably want to switch from the base color to the normal map. So now I can see exactly where this ends. So let's get this as close as we can. So somewhere right about there might be good. But I'm going to want to go ahead and apply a material to this so I can actually see it. So let's do that now. All right, so now we can see it, and that looks good to me. And like I said, you always have these little edges clipping here, which is dependent on how many vertices you have all around. Obviously, you don't want to add a crazy number like 64, but I found 12 is kind of a good round amount. So I kind of try to keep this at the average between the really high points and low points. So somewhere around there. Actually, might just go down a little bit more. All right, I think I'm happy with that. Next, I am going to hit I to inset this to right here. A little bit out some, and move that up. I'm going to inset this more and move this up. Now give it a little bit of roundness. Now if I right click and shade smooth, this is a round object. All right. Now let's rotate this on X and scale it down. Rotate on Z, 90. Let's do negative. Then just move this on Y. So let's see, how do we want this? Let's do GY here. Now I want to think about how this is going to be arraying. So I want this to be at the center of each of these meters here. So there will always be one every meter at the center of a meter. So I need to move this by 0.5 meters. So let's move this here first though, then do gy.5. So now it's directly between these two marks. Scale down some more, move this up, move on Y, or X I mean. I can hit the period key on the numpad to zoom into it. G then Z. And I'm going to move this back out a little more so it's barely clipping in. Alright. Then I'm going to do Shift D, Y, and then Control. Put that right there. That's exactly how I want that. And so that's how you can model in other details just by kind of making a model, then matching to here and adding a bit more info to it. Very handy. I want to click these and go ahead and add them to this model here, which is already mirroring, so they'll appear on the other side here when I hit Control J. So that's perfect. We now have these on both sides. And if I'm thinking about it, I believe this is all I need for the center ridge here. So that should be good. So I think I'm going to go ahead and apply the mirror on this and then join these together so they're all just one model. I like what it did there. So let's go ahead and right click and do shade smooth again. And actually it's going to clear these cuts with noise to make sure it's actually doing what I want it to do. If I turn on shade smooth, there we go. Sometimes when joining it, it can mess up the shading on your normals and you have to clear it and re-add it. But this should be good now. Alright, so that is it for the base ridge fill. Next we're going to duplicate this and use it to construct the base ridge kind of end cap. And then we'll be able to just move them onto our model and we'll be about done with everything. So we'll see you on the next segment. Alright, so let's make the end cap of our ridge system now. So this is a picture of what the previous ridge I built is like. The one we have here is a little bit thicker left and right, but that's okay because I actually wanted this one to be a little bit thicker on the left and the right. So what we are going to need to do on this one is we're going to duplicate and make this part flare up a bit and then have an end cap on that. Then we also need to create this kind of decorative design on the front here. And this is one of the segments where we'll actually start using our deferred decals here. And that's where we'll also have a different material. So let's go ahead and start on that. I'm going to move this over to the side here as reference. I'm going to grab my object here and duplicate it. Then I'm going to turn off the base ridge fill. And I think the first thing I will do is go ahead and let's see, I'm going to first take this tube up here, hit P selection to separate it. And I'm going to use that to move it forward a bit and join these two together. Let's hit Control J. Then I'm going to go into edit mode here and right click and do remove doubles. So I can spot it, there it is. And then I'm going to cut off most of the rest of this. So let's go all the way down to here and cut that off. And eventually I'm going to move this up some more. But before I do that, I'm going to add the kind of edge design to this. So I'm going to first, to give me reference, I want to fill this all in, but we're not going to keep that here. See, I can't really see that when I'm not inside edit mode, and I kind of want to be able to see the outline. So if I fill it, it's going to look ugly, but now when I'm in this position, I can actually make the outline of my shape. So now I just need to add a plane here. All right. And we will do Control R to add that right there. Hit Control I, delete vertices. Control R again to have a piece in the center. And then turn on mirroring. So mirror. I'm going to turn clipping on too, though I might turn that off. Alright, so hit Tab, then G, and slide this up. So I am going to face right here, and then start kind of drawing out what I want. So, you'll have to play around with some your first time. but since I've already done it before, I have a little bit of reference from what I built while experimenting. I kind of know what I want to make. So I'm going to have this go out to here, then that curve down, and that will be a kind of sharp corner there. And then this will curve out. And I'll go back through and bevel some of these parts later too, make them a bit smoother. Like here, I can hit Control B, then V to do vertex. So then this will go straight down and will curve up. So like that, kind of like a swirl. Okay, then that will go back around. And we can move these back around, get these a little bit more in the position they need to be in. It's going to go all the way around into a corner. So we'll call this our corner, and then position these a little more better. I'm going to do Control B, V again here to add some extra vertices. I'm just going to try to make this a little bit smoother around it. Alright, I think that's good for there. Next, I want this piece to go out and go around. Then this piece will go down and curve all the way back up into the system. So I want to kind of clip around through there. So I am going to, I guess I don't really need to. I'll go back to what I'm thinking about in a moment once I get this to where I want it to go. There may be some more changes we need to make. Let's get this to here. So clipping just enough underneath that vertices where I want to get it. And make sure this is encompassing everything underneath. Let's bring that up to here. And here I want this to be rounded off. So I'm actually going to put it right there and make this go straight left. So I want to click this vertex, hit Control B, V, and bevel it quite a bit. So something like that. Alright. And I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to move these vertices over a little bit. Alright, move that to make that a bit more round. Let's see how this looks. I think I had this all a lot larger before, so what I can do is select all these and just scale it up. And then move these to where I feel that they should go. Let's move this down, this over. I'm going to want to round this a little bit, not that much. There should be good. Alright. So that to me is a much better size. And I think I'll move this to the right some, so it's a little bit big. Alright. And I'm going to grab these and move these up a little bit. And once again, grab everything here and move to the right some more. Alright. I think I'm happy with that. Maybe. We'll change it some more if we need to. So now all I need to do is, let's see here. I'm going to want to move this forward a little bit, but not a crazy amount. So let's have this go forward by just a smidge, maybe an inch or so. I think about here is good. Alright, I think I'm happy with that. Next, I'm going to hit F to fill this, and then I'm going to hit I for inset to give that kind of corner piece there. And these are going to go a bit too far in on those sections there. We can see we're going to fix that in a moment. I think about right there is good. Now I'm going to click this vertex and this vertex, move these in. And I'm going to overall make some of these segments a bit thinner by selecting the vertices, tapping GG, and then sliding them. They're just a little bit too thick here. All right. Let's move this in a bit, this one in a bit. And for these, I can go into edge mode and bevel them. Let's do it about right there. All right. I'm happy with that. We may join these vertices together here to keep these nice and sharp. Actually, that is what I'll do. I believe I did that on the original also. So I'm going to do the same thing here to round this out on the inside. But then on the outside, I'm going to select these and make sure I select that middle one last to merge them there. So same thing on this one, Alt M at last. These two, then the center, Alt M at last. All right. So I also need to go into here and fix this. And there is a hotkey you can use when doing the inset to prevent this from happening, but it often doesn't quite work all the time for me, so I just don't use it. Sometimes I'll try it, sometimes I won't. All right. And I think these are fine. I'm going to slide these down a little bit. Move this up maybe a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to go into face mode and grab this whole section here and then just extrude. I'm going to move that inward and move that to about right here. All right, I think I'm happy with that. Then I can just hit Control T to triangulate this. It's all flat. A bit of a heavier inset than I did before, but I think I'll move that back then, just a little bit. Let's move this on Y to here. All right. Up next, I need to take this and have it extrude the opposite way here. But I think I might use a mirror modifier this time to get it in position. Maybe not. I don't know yet. Let's move this to right here. And, yeah, why don't we use a mirror modifier while we're working on this at the end? We'll clear it when we do the UVs for this. Make things a little bit easier, I think. Or actually, I could just go ahead and duplicate this whole structure and scale Y, -1, then GY, and then I'm going to delete these vertices and delete these vertices, and then select all these edges, right click, and then bridge edge loops, like that. Now this is very thick here, so what I want to do is in edit mode, I'm going to go to wireframe by hitting Z, then you can either hit 4 or just select it. Select all these, go back to look dev, then G, then Y. I want this to be about that thickness, I think. All right, that all looks good to me. So now I don't need this center face here, so I'm just going to hit edit mode on it. Remember that that was the last face I added, so I'm going to delete it. And you may have thought I was going to take that and then just add UVs there, but there's just a lot of vertices going around here. We really don't need that many. We could actually make this using just the 4 key points inside here. So to do that, I'm going to duplicate this. Let's select all the vertices. I'm going to go into wireframe mode, and I'm going to do it like this. So hit Control I and delete. Except for this point, and then 1, and then I'm going to extrude this straight up. Make sure I'm keeping that right vertex directly in the center. I should just be able to move this in here, and that'll be good. I think, yes, that will be good. All right, so let's actually just do that upon X, so I'm not moving it at a weird angle. All right, then we just add a mirror modifier to that. Okay, and it has merge on, all that already. Now I'm going to go back to look dev, and I think this already has the material on it too. Okay, that's perfect. Let's go ahead and just UV unwrap that. So what I'm going to do is add one here, because this is a pretty large piece. It's not going to be able to fit on just these tiles with this kind of ornament here. So I'm going to have to do it in two sections. So first I'm going to unwrap this piece. Alright, and scale it down and rotate by 90. And then I'm going to put that right onto here. I need to scale down a little bit more. But overall, I want to get it somewhat close. Alright, and I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to move it on actually a little bit more around the center there. And then if you don't want this to be mirrored, you could just go and apply the mirror modifier and do it. I just like to keep things non-destructive while I work, and usually things that are mirrored aren't that noticeable in games, but if it really does bother you, then you can change it. So let's rotate this by 180. And then I just need to fit this onto here and get it about the same scale. Alright. That should be perfect. Now I'm going to move this across and just get one of these spheres and say almost around. Alright, I am happy with that. Now then, let's put this piece into position. So I'm going to do that by adding in quite a bit more geo here. I may delete some. So I think, let's add this right about here, and that will be where my end cap is. So in order to do this, we want to bend this all the way up. So actually, here's what I'll do. I'm going to delete these two edges. So this section here is going to be my gold end cap piece. And this section here is what's going to get bent upwards, but then I'm going to bevel it to give it a better curvature. And that should look right. So let's bend this upward by having all these verses selected, then select just this one, but then tell us to bend around the active element. So now if I do RX, it's going to bend around that. So I'm going to bend it like that. And then I'm going to hit Alt-A, select these both, and then select this one and do RX again. So it's bent up like that. Then I can select this piece here and do one bevel or two to get this how I want it. I'm going to do, I guess, two like that. And so now we have the end here bent up. And this should match up perfect with our previous piece. So if you go turn that on here, I can hit GUI, move by 2. And as you can see, this matches up perfectly here. Very nice. So let's put this back. Turn off the base rich fill. We're going to turn these all together into one piece here at the end. So I'm not going to quite name them just yet. It's working with way more I would. I don't need to. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill off the end here for the UVs. So let's go ahead and unwrap this. All right. And let's get this down to here. So rotate it like that. Down to here, rotate some more. And this should be good. Let's actually rotate this by 180 to get it upright. And this is just all a matter of fiddling around trying to get it in as close as you can to how you want it. And I think I'm happy with that. Yes, that looks good to me. All right. I think I will make this cap not quite that thick. So I can double tap G and move this inward a little bit. If I type T, you notice that the edge slide here, primers come up, and I have correct UVs on. So that means when I slide it, it's not going to distort the UVs. I'm going to select this segment here now and hit unwrap. And it's actually, oh, that didn't work. So, right, there's a seam down there. Good. So let's move that down. And I'm going to scale this down to where it's going to run the circumference of that. And put that into position up here on the gold. All right. And those look like they're about similar textile densities. Not quite. I'm going to select this, scale it down quite a bit more. Alright, so that looks good for me there. Last section here is to go ahead and correct normals on this, and then we're going to add in our floating decals. So I'm going to right click, hit shade smooth. It's going to look awful, but then we'll just turn on auto smooth and bump that up pretty high. So let's try 70 degrees. And why aren't you happy? 70 degrees. Alright, so it's marking that one sharp, which is what I want. I want this corner sharp and this corner sharp. And everything I want sharp is sharp except for here, but I'm going to go ahead and hit add custom split normals, which means that 70-degree mark here, I can't change that anymore and it won't do anything. As you can see, it's not doing anything anymore. So when you add the custom split normals, it converts it to sharp edges. So I have sharp edges marked everywhere. So I'm going to grab this one too, right click and mark as sharp. Actually Control E, then mark sharp. Alright, that's what I want. And now we just need to UV this section. So we're going to hit tab, go into faces, select this whole component here, hit U, unwrap, R90, and then I'm going to move this to here. I want this to fill up the whole kind of flowery section. It's supposed to about right there. I want to get to just the edges there. Let's get a little bit of normal. Let's go ahead and add the material so we can actually see what's going on. Alright, so we can see, hey, we have that nice flower or kind of leaf ornament design here on the edges. Now for this center section, so let's go ahead and, let's see, hit this, hit Control I, and then Control minus and Control minus. So now we have both of just these selected. And when I do Control minus, I'm hitting minus on my numpad. Doing Control minus on the main keyboard, it will not be the same thing. So let's unwrap these. They are a bit odd shapes, but we can scale them down and get one to fit. I want this to be in the gold section. Right about there, that's good. Now I'm going to just move the other one to position. Alright. And that is good. So now these have their gold on them. And or anything in here marked sharp I don't want? No, that's all good. So I'm going to select all of that. Alright, then I'm just going to hit unwrap. This will be a long stick. Let's put that in here and scale it down to the correct size. So quite a bit bigger, actually. Alright. I think that's good. Maybe a bit smaller. Alright, that I'm happy with. Now we just need to do this end here. Oh, right, we actually need to do the edge over here too. So let's go ahead and unwrap that. R90, put it into position, and then just scale up a little bit. Okay. Next, I need to get this entire kind of edge interior. So I'm going to do that by just kind of tediously selecting it. And that's not what I wanted. So I'm tapping C here to get the circle selection option up. And I can just drag across. I'm mostly doing Shift and Alt left click to get the entire loop. I'm going to go and grab the other side too before I continue. Let's just grab as much as we can. And then get the last bits by hitting C, then clicking there. But make sure we don't go overboard or off to select anything else we don't want. And I'm just going to hit U to unwrap and rotate one of these to get it into position. And you could break this up a bit more and places to get better, maybe straighten it out some. But I don't feel that we need to do that. Yes, that looks good to me. Let's hit and grab this one and put this into position now. All right, this section here is almost done. So I'm going to go ahead and end this section, go on to the next one. The next one, we're going to add on our decals here, which will be used as a default decal system in the game engine we go to. And then I will set up the modifiers for moving these and placing this around onto our kind of placeholder roof so we know that it all matches up perfectly. So I will see you in the next section. Alright, it's time to go ahead and add in the decals, but also I forgot I added another ornament here to fill this in some. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this piece here, go into edit mode, go in the face mode by hitting 3, so I'm selecting faces, select that piece there, hit Control plus, I'm hitting the plus on the numpad here, then I hit Control I and delete the faces. Now if I just hit A, I'll select all and be hitting just that piece there. So I'm going to rotate the sun and move it down. And I don't care about this one being truly perfect, so I'm just going to get it close enough. That's where this one X on, and that looks good. So I'm going to put that about right there. Maybe in a little bit more. I'm happy with that. Alright. Now I believe all the modifiers are clean except for this one piece here. What is this plane here? So this still has its modifier on, so I'm going to go ahead and apply this one. It's merging everything, and then I just want to merge everything together here with this piece. Let's hit Control J, and of course that is going to break everything. Right, this also is mirror modifier. Right. So let me go back and make sure this is all set. I'm going to add custom split normals on this piece here, so it's all applied. I want to make sure all of them are like that. Let's just add custom split normals, add custom split normals, add custom split normals. And that should prevent it from kind of clearing when I join it. There we go. So now it stays if I have add custom split normals joined on all of them. This is just all one big mesh here I'm working with, but it's almost complete. I just need to add a few more meshes onto it. So let's call this the base ridge underscore cap. And technically it's going to be a start cap, but I'm just naming it whatever. We aren't going to have any other type of cap for it, that we could have one if we wanted to. So I'm going to go back to my material planes I added where I have my two different materials. So I'm going to turn that on. So I have that material set up to where it has everything plugged in. And like I had gone over at the beginning of the video, I showed how to set it up to where it actually has transparency on it. And that's going to be important for us placing it inside Blender to kind of visually see where it is. Though you don't have to be that exact. We can actually just have this as a picture here of the normal, and we'd still be able to get close enough to where it's usable in an engine. So even if you aren't using Blender, you can kind of guess where it looks perfect enough and it will look great. You don't need to be truly exact with it, so don't overthink it. And I guess it's the same bases I had here, so they're already cut. So the way I had cut these is, I'm going to go ahead and do it from the beginning here. That's what I meant to do by transfer these over from what I was previously working on. So I'm going to select all these edges here and just dissolve the edges. And now this is back to a regular plane, which is what you should have. So what I did was hit Control R and just slide this over. I think the way I'm going to do this one is put it directly in the center and do the same thing the other way. There is an exact number of cuts that will get there, but I just find this to be a little bit quicker for what I'm doing. I'm going to select both of them, then hit Control B and slide it until it's just encompassing it. So that is perfect. Should be perfect. Actually, it's a little bit too high up there. Whoops, I need to reset since I went too far. Because that top edge was going too high. Let's get right there, but we're going to need to move this edge down just a little bit. It's probably fine right there, but let's grab this one too and move it over a little bit. And there. Alright, now if I select that period, so that looks good. So now I'm going to hit Shift D on this, and G action, just move it right here. Hit P by selection, and then I'm going to right click and set origin to geometry, then hit Shift S, selection to cursor. Alright, now I'm going to move that by hitting M while it's still active to the group set and to base components. Then I'm just going to turn off my material planes. So I'm going to hit period to zoom in on this, and we don't need, I don't think we're going to be using this again ever for a while. Actually, there's one more section where we will be using the UV image editor. But now I can take this piece here and rotate by 90 and scale it down some. Put GY, GX, and we can go into front ortho mode and place this how we want it. So I'm going to scale this down to be around right here. And now I'm going to do this in edit mode, so I'll say it's a single object, so that way when I apply the mirror modifier, it just all transfers over. So I'm going to hit Shift D, place this one right here, Shift D, there, Shift D, Shift D, and so forth. And are these going to fit? Yes, they are. I'll make sure they weren't too thick. Or actually, I might need to shrink all these down a little bit more to get these to fit, or move these down. Let's find out. So let's select all these and hit GY and move them in. And I want it just barely hovering in front of it. So that's good enough. Could be a little bit closer, maybe right there. But I am happy with that. You can see that's how it looks using just the opacity shader, though you wouldn't want to use the opacity shader in the engine. You'd want to use a decal shader of some sort, a mesh-based decal. So look at this material and know to project it onto the surface behind it and add its normals and everything. But it's a very handy trick for placing details. If you've looked at the Star Citizen video games, for example, they do almost nothing but tiles and decal trims all over their ships and environments. Lets them make large, complex environments using just a few textures. It's very nice. So let's select this one a little bit, and I'm going to hit Shift Y to move it just upon this plane. So that'll go right there. All right. Now I'm going to use a mirror modifier. Let's do mirror, and that's not what I want. I believe I have my center object here that we started with a long time ago, just an empty I have in the center of the world on one of the reference folders. Then I'm going to hit apply, hit this, hit Control J, join. Alright, to finish up the base component here, I need to test this out because I want this to be working on curves. So I'm going to hit Shift A and add a path. But it's very important here that I instantly hit Tab and go into edit mode while I move this. I don't want to move this at all while I'm in a regular object mode. And that is because I want the origin to stay here always and forever. Because the modifiers like array and whatnot are based on origin location relative to the objects that are going to the curve. So you need to make sure the object's origin and the curve's origin are always in the same place. And that can be anywhere you want, but it's easiest I just keep them right in the center. So I can just move this wherever I want now and place it down. And that looks good to me. Sorry. Let's go ahead and figure out how to set these up, because these always don't go onto here perfectly as you'd think they would. So I'm going to call this ridge underscore path. And that's going to set to ridge path 3 because I have those previous floors here where I made this whole structure before. So that's why it's naming that way, but it shouldn't do that for you. let's turn on our other base ridge. So first, I'm going to turn off the cap, and then I'm going to add an array modifier on this. So I want it to actually be a fixed count, or I could do it have fit curve. I don't think I like it if it curved on these because they can be a bit odd when doing it with a cap. I'm going to do constant offset, and I'm going to do it by y1 or y2. What's going on? Why are you not showing up here? Oh, right. So I have to fit curve now. It's not bound to a curve, so there's nowhere to go. Right. So let's put this at 2 meters here. So those match up perfectly, and the UVs are all matching up perfectly. So let's do merge. It's going to join all the vertices together. Then I want to add a curve modifier. So if I go over to add modifier, I can find this one on deform called curve. I'm going to select this here, and then go to the deformation axis and change it to Y. And that's not quite how we want it. We need to select this, go into edit mode on it, select all the vertices, hit N, and rotate the mean tilt by 90. All right. So as you can see, for this object here, this is where the mesh is, and this is where its origin is. This curve's origin is also right there. So it places it right there on the tip where their origins are. Now the caps are a little bit different. So let's go to the array modifier. So we want to select a cap now, and I'm going to turn on the base ridge cap. I want this to be a start cap. Boop. So as you can see, it's already added it where we want, though I don't like how this is right now. The reason for it is my curve is still inside this large section here, and my cap is pretty large. I could design this to where just this mesh here is the cap, and maybe pull it back a little bit so I can still have this kind of arch ridge here, but I ultimately decided to go with this structure for it. To fix this, what we need to do is go back into here and slide this over 2 meters and slide this over 2 meters, which means we select this entire mesh, hit GY, and then slide it like that. But now, since these origins aren't in the same spot, it's not sure how to place them with the array modifier, because it's by 2 meters. So we select this mesh now, hit G, or A, select everything, GY, Control, move back to the right twice. And that's supposed to fix it, but it's not. And why is that? I'm not sure why it's... Oh, okay. That is very odd. It looks like it does not update instantly, which I've never seen that happen before. So let's mess with this array modifier now. So if I have it at just 1, it has that 1 there plus the cap, and inside here is the curve. So if I were to select this curve now, I can now move this around. And it's very broken and awful looking because we forgot to add some loops here. So let's do that. So let's add about the same number we have as we do up here. So let's divide this by 4. So it's 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So we have 4 loops there. And let me see if I did that on the other right. I did not. So let's add it there. So it's 4 there. Now let's go and grab our path. And this should have been much better. Right. So if you want to deform more sharply than that, you're going to add a bit more geometry. One thing you can do so you don't have to use a lot of geometry is go ahead and put into place and deform it how you want, even if it doesn't deform on some areas too bad. Apply the array modifier, then go back into edit mode on it and add in more loop cuts, but only on the areas you actually need more loop cuts. And it will still deform to it, but now will actually deform a bit more smoothly in the areas you care about. But anyway, this looks like how we want it. So with that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and end on this section here, and I'll see you on the next segment where I'm going to add these to the corners. And then the final segment is where we're going to take the structure and use it to cap off the very top of the building. Then I guess we'll do one more segment where I'm going to show you how to arrange it for export into a game engine of your choice. Alright, so I'll see you on the next section. Alright, we're ready to start placing the corner ridges, but before we do that, I've noticed an issue that I probably noticed before when I was doing it, though I don't remember it. You noticed here that this is our mesh, our new film mesh that has the modifier that's attached to the curve and has the cap. And the cap here, the wrong material is now on these decals here, and it only has one material on it. If we go back to the original cap, we have two materials on the material slot in this object. Though this object is not actually being placed there, it's just referencing the object data for the fill on here, which only has one material. So we need to go ahead and add on the second material there, even though the actual base object there doesn't have that. And now we can see it has been fixed, and these have the proper transparency around it for when we export it. So now that that's done, we can start placing these. So the way I like to do it is have my setup here, and I'll select everything on this layer and duplicate and move it to a new folder. But before I do that, we need to construct that folder. So I'm going to go to the roof set over here and add a new collection. I'm going to move it up to here. Then I'm going to name this corner ridges, or corner ridge. So let's just call it that for now. And then inside there, we will have a modifier folder. Let's call this corner ridge underscore mod. So you just need to double click that, backspace, underscore, and mod. And that's where we'll be moving this section into. So we hit A to select all, which is also selecting this. And remember, when you do A, make sure you don't have any of the other collections turned on. So like my material planes are turned off, so you don't select too much. Then we'll hit Shift D to duplicate both of these. And you can see I'm moving the curve and the mesh around so their origins are staying in the same place. I'll hit M to move to roof set, corner ridge mod. Now I'm going to turn off base components. And I think I might actually delete this curve and make a new one. It's going to be hard to get that back to the center. So that is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to delete this ridge path. Hit Shift A curve to make a new path. I'm going to go into edit mode, GX, like that. I want to go to the 3 cursor to rotate on that and do RZ90. And with all the vertices selected, I'm going to change the mean tilt to be 90. Alright, now I just need to go back to this object here, go to its modifiers, and select that curve path. So let's see here. Should just be nerves path up here, so we can see right here. So let's change it. Turn this off. So nerves path. Alright, so that's the correct one. So if I move this now, it should bend. Okay, good. So let's call this the ridge underscore path, or corner ridge path. And we're actually going to have 2 of these. It looks like I need to actually put an F there instead of a D. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn on our other 2 roofs so we can place this correctly. This is where other roofs are, and if I want to be safe, I can click this little kind of mouse pointing icon on here to make sure I don't accidentally click any of these other objects except for these that are active. So we want to select the path of it, just right here, and I'm going to do G, Y, and snap. I'm going to snap this all the way over to this corner here. Next, I'm going to hit R, Z, and I want to make sure I put this back down to the active point. So medium, or actually active element is what I want. So that would be this last vertex on the curve there. So RZ, then 45. Let's go to exact angle. Now for the rest of this, we just need to move these up and down upon Z. So let's do that. And this curvature goes up a bit more as it gets to the top. All right. I want to move this down some. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. I could move this back a little bit more if I want to, but I think this is good. So I need to make sure this reaches all the way up here and actually intersects. So we're going to use some modifiers to cut it and then mirror it. Though in the end, we'll just have one of these pieces that we export into GameGen, because you may want to move this one piece around somewhere else and rotate it or whatever you want. All right. And it would be maybe another good idea to duplicate the same structure and make another piece where it flows from right here upon the Y and goes to right here. That way in the engine, you could take that one asset, duplicate it, and move it left and right on a roof. Or you could have another section of roof that can go on forever. You can have some very large corridors using this system. So make whatever modules you feel like making. So this is going to be the bottom one. So this one we are actually going to the array and reduce it. And I guess we aren't going to reduce that much. We're probably going to have to Boolean that. It can't go any lower than that. I'll worry about that in a sec. The next piece, or let's go ahead and do it. So let's go ahead and while this is active, add in a Boolean. So we're going to make a mesh and make it a cube. I'm going to rotate it by 45. Then do G, Y, move it here, G, X, and then control move it here. And I kind of want one of these pieces to go into another piece like I had in the original, which is why I'm doing this. So now I'm going to rotate this upon Y by double tapping Y, then G, Z, Z, move that up. Now I'm going to select this the space here and do G, Y, Y, or X, X. Move that out. I'm going to change this to be only displaying the wireframe by going to this little tab here, then clicking display as wire. So I'm going to call this bool. So this is the corner ridge bool 1. Or we'll call this the lower bool, because we're going to have another one. Underscore, then LWR, then bool. That's the lower bool operation we're going to do for this. So in addition to this modifier, then curve, after that we have the Boolean. No, not bevel. Boolean. All right. Just navigate and find where it's this box right here we can click on. So let's go ahead and just select that. And we want it to be subtract, so difference. All right. And it's got a bit of that ugly geometry it's generating right here, but we can fix that easily when we need to later on. Which we might be able to go and just fix that now by selecting the space here and then rotating it upon Y. I want to get as straight as possible. It looks like it's just about fixing. It's kind of messing up on the top there. Let's go R, Y, Y. Just kind of rotate this around and see what it's going to do. So there we go. That generated it perfectly to where it looks like there's no stray edges being generated, which sometimes that happens. I think that might be happening for these roofs here. We have to clean it up, but that's okay. So now I'm going to grab all of this and duplicate again. But this time on the second object, I'm going to first hit G, Z, Control, and move it up just one so I can easily find these. And I'm going to take this big box and delete it, which is part of the second one. And I'm going to keep the Boolean here, but I'm going to turn off for now. And I think what I will do is add in a new folder inside here and call this one the top ridge. This is more like the top corner ridge though. But this is going to be part of the same asset, which is why I have it inside of the mod folder. So I'm just going to keep the top ridge for now. Or top corner ridge. I'm not too sure what I want to name the top one top. Alright. So now let's go ahead and move these into place. So first we also need to find the path we moved. So let's go into wireframe here so we can see it more easily. So that's the path there. Grab that, And that is everything for this one asset here. So let's move that into roof set, corner ridge mod, top corner ridge. That's on there. So now inside here we have these three objects here. So we've got the ridge, the boolean, and the path. Then inside here we are going to have the ridge and the path and another boolean, but we'll add the boolean later. So let's go to look dev mode and figure out how we want to place this. So first I am going to select this and the path and move them back into where they were before. So GZ straight down. Next I'm going to select just the path inside the top corner ridge there. And I want this to be slid back. So the way I'm going to do that is grab one of these points and I can, will that compress it? No, it doesn't. So we're going to take these and move it straight back. And I don't think that's actually moving it perfectly. Let's see. I want to slide it upon it, but I can't. So instead what I'm going to do is have it set to active element, select this point here, then scale, and I'll just move that point towards it. Alright, now I'm going to move this point towards that point, and maybe move it back just a little bit more. But the point here is that I'm going to move this up just slightly, not right there, but this very end point, move it up just slightly. Alright, that's good. Now I'm going to go out of edit mode on that one and grab the last ridge I had. And I'm going to go ahead and change the boolean on this ridge. I'm going to select the lower bool right here. And it's time to move this out. So I'm going to do Alt S to move this. And oh, that's not good. We'll figure that out later. So I'm just going to keep that way for now and we'll clean that up later. But for this piece here, I'm going to grab it. No, wait, not grab that. I'm going to grab its path. And I'm going to select all of these. So I really don't need those, but I'm going to keep them there anyway. I'm going to select all 1, 2, 3, 4, the first 4 there, except for the very last one. I can hit Control A to change the radius. Or I used to be able to. I guess it's been changed. But the way we change it now is we can change it up here. You can do it that way in the last Blender too. I just haven't recognized what the new keybind is for it. Let's move it to point. So let's move it to 0.85, or maybe 0.8. I don't want this to be scaled too severely, but then we can scale this one up. So I put this one all the way down to 0.8 across here. So now I'm going to tab out, click on the other path, and grab just the end piece and scale this up. So not with S, but with the radius here. So let's put it to 1.1. So how about 1.2? And then I can move it down a little bit too. That's very close. I don't like how these points here are clipping though, so I'd like to fix that. But you can see if we go too severe, it kind of stretches this out. So I'm going to go back to 1.15 to keep it closer. I don't want it to get way too stretched. I'm going to go back to the first one to shrink this down to where it needs to be. Alright, so I'm going to put it about there actually, then just hit GZ, then 1. Move it down. Let's go down a little more. Alright, we're almost there. Let's do 0.63. Alright, that is much better. I don't like that piece there. Move this up a little bit and cover it up. Or we'll delete it in the post cleanup actually. So let's keep that fine for now. Alright, so I am happy with how that looks just about. We may go back and readjust it some more. But overall, not that bad. Yes, okay. So there is extra geometry inside this component here, right inside here. And we're going to go back and delete that in the cleanup process. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. So Control S. Inside the top corner ridge, I'm going to add a new Boolean. and it's basically going to cut it right across here so I can mirror this whole structure. And I'm also going to go back here and array this one more time. As you can see, this isn't quite reaching the center, which we're going to want it to for it to be mirrored precisely. So let's up that. All right. So now inside the top corner ridge, I'm going to add some new geometry, a cube. Then I'm going to go to my top ortho view, and not ortho yet, but I'm going to put that right there. I'm going to scale this upon X, scale it upon Z, and then just move this whole face here out a little bit more. All right, now let's change this view to also be a wireframe. So max display is as wireframe. So top corner ridge underscore bool. All right, now let's click on our top corner ridge there, go to the modifiers, and back to the boolean here, we can just color pick that, turn it on, and it's getting cut directly in half, and I think it's not generating odd geometry, which is always nice. So often it'll generate odd geometry. So now what we can do is on this piece here, we can add in our mirror modifier upon X and Y, then just go down here and do the same thing. Let's add a new modifier, mirror X and Y. I'm just using these modifiers and mirror thing to preview how I would snap it in game, just to make sure it can actually do this. But we're actually only going to export out just this roof here, one corner ridge and one top ridge and one side ridge, rather than exporting this all out as a single asset. So that way in Engine you can move it around and mix it up. But yes, this looks very nice. So this geometry up here is odd. So what I did to cover this up is we're going to add one more asset, which is kind of a cover ridge type piece that can go on the top of components. And then the last section after that will be compiling all these modifiers, collapsing them, and putting them all as a single mesh asset and moving them so their origins are in the correct spot for them to be exported. And that will conclude the tutorial. So I'm going to hit Control S to save. I'm going to minimize these. And then I will see you guys on the next segment. Alright, we're in the home stretch here now. Just need to finish the top ridge, then collapse everything. So first I'm going to go ahead and actually keep all these on and just turn off the click icon on each of these folders for 8M, 6M, and corner ridge. So now nothing on here I can actually click or mess around with, which is what I want. Next I'm going to go over here and add on underneath the roof set the final asset we are making for this collection. Of course, if you're making an entire environment, you may want to have a lot more models than just these 4. So let's go ahead and call this the top underscore ridge, or whatever you think is appropriate for you to name it, as long as you can easily identify it. So let's go to our base components here, which is kind of where we are grabbing objects to use. I'm actually going to move this outside into the tutorial folder, which, I think is already there. Well, anyway, we will open this up and toggle everything on here. And I just want to grab this piece here and duplicate it. Then hit N, tutorial, roof set, top ridge. All right, now I'm going to close everything inside here. We're going to go in the top ridge. That's not top ridge, this is top ridge. And then open this up and label it top ridge underscore mod. Underscore mod. And don't want the O capitalized. Alright. So now let's move this into place. So first we had moved this over for the sake of having it in the correct position for our other modifier. So now I'm going to snap it. When I move it up and rotate upon 90, then just get this to exactly where I feel like it belongs. I think just on the other side here. And actually I will just lower this. So I want this to where it looks like these pieces here are getting tucked underneath, like that. Okay. Next, I'm going to want to mirror this. So see, that spot I like. I might want this out a little bit more. I'm not sure. Instead, I think I'm going to move it over here and then do the mirror modifier and see how that looks. Let's do mirror and let's do center. So find that center ref we have. All right, and let's turn off the whole, or we'll keep merge, but we'll keep clipping off. So what I think I'm going to do is I could have it meet right there in the center, but it's kind of clipping a little bit further off than I would like it to. So instead, I'm going to move it as close as I want to where it feels appropriate. I think out a little bit more. Then inside of, let's put this inside the top ridge mod. Inside top ridge mod, we will go ahead and turn off this mod right here. But we are going to add a new box for doing a Boolean operation. Let's go down to here to turn on just the display as wire. And let's move this up. Then hit G, X, and Control, and move it right here. Then we're just going to cut that off. So now it's going to the Boolean here, and add the Boolean modifier. We'll put it before the mirror, and then we are going to grab our box here, just like that. And then we will mirror, and this will merge together. That's exactly what we want. It's probably adding some odd geometry here, which we can clean up afterwards. But other than that, that's all good. And you might want to delete these points after and put one in the center. That depends on what you want to do. I actually don't mind that being right there. It looks okay to me. Okay, so now the only thing we have left for the top ridge is to put some geometry right here. So what I'm going to do for that is add in another cube. We're going to move it up just until it's intersecting a little bit there. I'm going to scale upon Y. And I'm going to scale this to where it's right there. Seems good to me. I'm going to hit Control A for rotation and scale. Grab this face and move it straight up. And actually, I think I'm going to do Control on that. Let's see. So why don't we, yeah, I'll just move this up to where I feel is appropriate. But we need to take into account if we're ever going to place this object in a different area in the game where it needs to be higher up or lower. But I can just move this up by, say, 0.5. Or no, I can't. So let's move this down by 0.25. So GZ 0.25 negatively. All right, that's good to me. And I think that's all I want on this. I'm going to delete this top face here so we don't need it. All right, so for this asset then, I'm going to, since we already have these where we need them placed, we don't need any of this reference geometry here that we're kind of using to know where to place things. So I'm just going to flat out turn these all off. So now we can just see what we're working with here. And I'm going to add a loop here, go into face selection mode, and actually Alt Shift, that face there. Add in our mirror modifier, and then we will UV unwrap it. So suit upon Y, have it clipping and merge. All right, that's all good. Now let's go ahead and UV unwrap this. So first, let's grab this out and change this to the UV editor and load up an image. And I think I will load up the normal map image to keep things more precise. And apparently there's already some geometry there. Alright, because when you spawn an object, it will usually auto unwrap. So this is like a severely stretched version of that. Kind of interesting. But let's go ahead and select just these faces and hit unwrap. I'm going to rotate it by 90. And I want this to be right about here. Let's do GZ, or GY, I mean. All right. And I actually like how that looks right there. I think this is what I did the first time. So I may change this a bit. If I want this goal to be moved down more, I can just hit Control R to add a loop cut here, and then slide everything down and move it to where I want. Let me see how this looks with the reference objects. So mainly I care about the roofs. So that's where everything is there. All right. I think I'm okay with that. It looks like everything is the correct size. Yes, so that's all inside there, tucked in. And actually, we do need to scale this out just a little bit more. That little gap right there is fine. You could scale a little more. I like the idea of keeping this to be exactly 2 meters long for snapping onto other objects. So we could either select all of this and slide it to where more of that is visible and have, say, gold there, or whatever else we want. And actually, I do know what I'm going to do. I am going to slide this to where the gold from here is transferring directly to here perfectly. So I'm going to do that by sliding this down to right there. And that, of course, means this has that here, but what we can do is just slide this down and cut right there. All right, let's select all this and this. And there are some other ways we could be going about doing this, but this works for me. Your meshes aren't necessarily always going to be snapping throughout the world truly perfectly in every instance, though it's nice if you can make things kind of snap around very seamlessly. So I like how that looks there. For example, I could definitely take this and put it down here if I want to for a different design in the engine or whatever you want. So it's very modular and kind of a kit bashy format, but these roof sections here definitely need to snap together vertex per vertex perfectly in case you don't want the top ridge on a roof. So it's kind of back and forth. If you're doing sci-fi things, then you probably have much more accurate snapping too. But now we can see how these kind of transfer onto here and go right across, which I like how that looks. So I think something else I had done here was I added these little round sections down here. So the way I'm going to do that is first I'm going to turn off everything else here, except the top ridge. I'm going to grab this and duplicate it, and grab just this piece here, hit Control I and delete. G, then move that down. And let's have it halfway between these, and then let's just move it upon X. Let's say right here is maybe good. And I want to actually apply, or let's just turn the modifier here and keep it all together. All right, so now we can move the way we want. I'm going to turn on the other assets here. You can see how that looks. And I do like how that looks. And of course, there's lots of other things on this trim sheet we could be placing. Yes, we could take these elements and make some complex ornaments going across here, or do whatever else you want, or cut off this piece and have these here. All right. I think that wraps that up for the asset design. The only thing left now is to collapse the modifiers, maybe do a little bit of cleanup if we have to. I think there's some where we need to clean it up. And then I'm going to show you how to position these for export to a game engine. All right. So I'm going to just go ahead and turn these off. And on the next section, I'll go down collapsing and arrangement. And that should be just about it. See you then. Alright, let's get into collapsing these, then we'll move them into position. I'm not going to use the UV editor anymore for the rest of this tutorial, so I'm just going to close that down. And I guess we should go ahead and start with the top ridge asset here. So we have the collection top ridge, and inside we have top ridge mod. So now we want the final asset to be just right next to the mod folder. So once we export that mesh and have it into a game engine, we may find some mistakes or things we don't like on it and need to fix that. In the event that happens, we would go back in here and delete that one that we exported, but go back to the mod folder and make the changes. The mods keep everything non-destructive. And it looks like we are having a few normal errors here, which should be fixed when we add these together. See, I including here's everything. Yeah, we'll fix those once we actually combine them together. And that's why we need to collapse our mods usually before exporting. Although this looks like it could export just fine with the modifiers, but just to be safe. So I'm going to hit A to select everything, hit Shift D, then M, and move it to tutorial, roof set, top ridge, but not the mod. So now there's a duplicate of that on the outside, so we can hide the inside here. Now I just need to click on each of these assets and collapse it. So let's boolean that, mirror that, and I'm not sure what this boolean is doing. Alright, that's the boolean that was on here, so we don't need that then. Do we? Actually, we might. Let's keep it, just in case. Yes, that all looks fine and dandy, and this is all good. And this is all a solid mesh 2 now. There's a few extra edges here, more than we need, that we can fix that when we get the chance. And we don't need this anymore, so let's just delete that. And for the shading here, let's go into solid and see how everything looks. I'm going to hit Shift N to make sure everything is correct way. Alright, so I got normalize. So let's go ahead to here and click on these and dissolve edges. Alright. And then let's go ahead and make sure the vertices are also joined, and they are. Alright, so that should be good. Next, we need to make sure all these edges are correctly marked sharp. They are. I think these are all good. So let's take a look at here. So we have the custom normals added. Or it has auto smooth, it doesn't have the custom. So let's go to the geometry data and do add custom split normals. I don't know why this is marked sharp. It shouldn't be. Actually, there's a lot of weird things going on there. So before doing that, let's go into here and go into face mode. And whoops, I hit the wrong key. Next one went out. And now we don't want the mod version, we just want the top ridge. So edit mode, Alt A, and we turn all, or no, we don't need the top ridge mod. We just need this one. There we are. Let's select this and delete that face. Alright. Now let's go grab these edges and delete these, and grab these edges here and hit Control E and clear sharp. I'm going to hit Shift N again, and I'm going to right click and do Shade Smooth, just to make sure this is all going well and easy. Alright. Now I'm going to hit Shift N once more to make sure everything is normalized. That should be good, and we shouldn't have any harsh rotations on it, or scale that is. Okay, so that looks good. And this is for sure good. But once again, we should do the auto smooth and add custom split normals to everything. So auto smooth on that too, add custom split normals. So all these have custom split normals now. So now let's combine them. I'm going to combine it to this one, Control A. And now this is all a single model here. So we are going to call this the top underscore ridge. Alright. And of course, it's doing the .001 because it's finding the top ridge I had there before, but we might be able to override it if we do it again, or just rename it something different. Yes, not probably swap the two, but it shouldn't do that for you guys. So that looks all good to me. Something you could do with the top piece here is edit these to where they're all not mirrored and going the same way. So that would look something like doing this and then UV unwrapping again. That's up to you if you want to do it. I'm just kind of showing you how you would. Alright. Now let's go ahead and close the top ridge there. like that, and open up the corner ridge. So I'm going to collapse that and select everything inside here. So I need to turn the clipping on again. I need to turn that on for all of these. So I'm going to select everything. And is this not selected? All right, this is actually inside here. So we need to make sure that clipping's on there, select everything in here. And I guess it's selecting all that. Yes, it is. Okay. So select everything and hit M and move this to roof sets underscore corner ridge underscore corner ridge. And now that should be quite a few models out there. We just need to go in and apply everything except for the mirror modifier. So let's look at the modifier stacks. Let's clear that. Now let's apply, apply, apply. Same thing with this piece here, just turn the mirror off and apply everything. Which means we no longer need these. All right, so we should just have these two here, and we don't need the paths either. I'm going to delete these paths. So let's look what we need to clean up on here. Let's go into edit mode. And luckily there's no any strange vertices going flying off to the corners here. And it looks like these sharp edges aren't continuing on. I'm not sure why. So let's go ahead and select here and here, right there, and add these back. Then we just need to get the bottom here, and also the bottom over here. Control E, mark sharp. Now all of those are back. That's good. I think that's everything for these. Yeah, everything else is managing to actually stay. I might want to change that. So let's see how that looked at the roof there. Yes, those are actually clipping into the roof. And then you would want to have geo placed along here that covers that up. So might want to tuck that under there a little bit, but overall it's really not going to be seen from any of the geo going across under here. And you could even be more accurate with these and move them up to where they're just barely clipping and they're more neatly covered. But this all looks fine to me. So let's go ahead and turn the roofs back off. And make sure these both have the custom normals on, so auto smooth on. They don't have custom split normals though. That's the issue. So let's hit add, and then add. All right. So are these all good? Yes, they are. That is perfect. Now we can combine these. So let's click this one and this one, hit Control J, and this is all a single model now. So we're just going to call this the corner underscore ridge and named it correctly. And this is kind of the segment where you would want to have this placed correctly. So when we export these out, it's always going to put the pivot of your model wherever this is relative to the center of the world. So let's say I were to move my origin of this object to over here. If you were to then export that while it's still located here, the origin would actually not be here. It would still be here relative to where the center of the world is in the model file. So that is where we want to kind of place our pivot. So I'm going to do GX, snap this down to the right ones, then GZ and snap it down to it's about there. So now that's where my pivot and cursor will be located when I export this out into game. Even though my origin's over there, that's not where it's going to be. So I'm happy with that. So the corner ridge there is then complete. And then the top ridge is just about complete too. We kind of just need to move this one into place now. So I'm going to click it, GZ, and move it down. And so I think right there is where I want the pivot on that to be. Yeah, that's good. I could want to have the pivot right here on the bottom face if I want to, but also I'm trying to keep this to snap evenly. So let's do GZ negative, or actually I'm going to keep it snapping for now. But if you want to, you can move it in even intervals of like say 0.1 and 0.05, because in your game engine, you're going to have snapping options. Usually, most engines have them, and you can change them to snap in intervals of 0.1, 0.05, 0.25, and so forth. So as long as you're kind of snapping the world to those units inside your modeling program, it will snap like that in Game Engine too, which is very convenient. So I think I'm going to keep it like this for now. Okay, I'm going to save. So top ridge and corner ridge are now complete. So now the roofs. The roofs may be a bit trickier depending on what's generating weird geometry. And I don't think these are. So let's select all these, hit Shift D, and then move to Roof Set, 6M Roof, and then 6M Roof. So they're out of the mod folder. Collapse that, go into here, and let's go ahead and get rid of the mirror modifier and apply everything. And we need to make sure we do the, made a whoopsie actually, I do need the mirror modifier. So I forgot these are mirroring right across. I just don't want mirroring over to there. Okay, so I just need one of these on. I need X on, or Y on. Now I can collapse. So we can open these and just click apply on each of them. All right. And I believe we can also, right, if you want to collapse your meshes quickly, what you can do is have the mirror modifier and everything set how you want it, then right click the mesh and do convert to mesh from curve metasurf/text. And that will automatically collapse all of your modifiers for you. All right. So now this looks like it's all good. Let's go into edit mode just to make sure. I want to make sure there's no vertices going straight off because Boolean modifiers tend to do that. Yes, these are good. I'm going to click that and Control J. And I am happy with that. Okay. So now we are done with the 6M roof there. And it looks though actually we need to mark these as sharp. And that's not what we want. I'm going to hit L here, or L on these. Actually, let's see. Whoops, I started an animation, which I cannot pause this from here. Real quick, let me open up this menu here. I accidentally hit the hotkey to cause the timeline to start. I don't want that playing. So now I'm going to collapse that back down. So I'm going to hit L on these pieces, and it looks like they did not merge for whatever reason. That's kind of annoying. This is also why we do the cleanup process. So let's just hit L on all of these. All right, and then I'm going to hit Control I and H to hide. Then I'm going to select all of these, right click, remove double vertices, and that should remove a lot, and it did. Then I'm going to select these faces and hit Mark Sharp. Looks like it did for all the insides. We might have messed up on the modifier. If we ever had to re-export this again, I'd change it there, then do this. That way it'll just actually be how it's supposed to be. So let's just select all these, Mark Sharp. Oh, not right there. Mark Sharp. All right, I think that's all of them. Yeah, so now this is all shading correctly. Let's go into just this flat shade here and see how it looks. All right, and I like how as your shading here looks good, then it's going to look right on the material. You don't want any weird bent normals or big triangulations showing up. All right, that's all good. So now I can move this as when I go into edit mode here, it's all going to disappear, but I need to just do Alt H to unveil the hidden there. Okay, that is good. So let's just call this the 8M underscore roof. I need to not hold down shift for that. 8M underscore roof. Or that's the 6M roof. What am I doing? There we go. Now let's collapse that or just hide it. And the 8M roof is the last one. Actually, I forgot to move this into place. So let's turn that back on. And we are going to go in the top ortho view. Let's do GX this way. And then I'm going to rotate on the 3D cursor. So RZ90 negative. I always want kind of the front of my asset facing this way on Y, so that everything is a consistent rotation. All right, let's go ahead and close that. Then go into your 8M roof over here, and we just need to duplicate that, do the same process now. Select everything, hit Shift D, M to move to the roof sit, 8M roof, 8M roof. Close the mod folder since we don't need it anymore. Then we are going to go to our geometry and edit the mirror modifier to where it's just the correct one we need. So just on X, same thing for here, just need the mirror modifier on X. All right, so we can select that. Like before we do this, let me make sure this is right. Oh, what's happening here? Are these all still visible? There's a lot more going on here than should be. Oh, that's my 6M roof. I accidentally still had that selected and moved it over, or I accidentally duplicated somehow. But our 6M roof is still down here. Yes, okay. I'm not sure how that got duplicated, but I guess I still had it selected. Small accident. But let's go ahead and make sure we have this all set how we want it. We do right click, convert to mesh. For this one, convert to mesh to collapse all of the modifiers. All right, we do not need this anymore. We still got the backup though inside of the mod folder in case we do need to go back and make changes. Okay, so let's check this. And once again, why aren't these joining? I have the merge option turned on the array modifier, but they just aren't quite merging together. So what I could do is hit Control Z over and over to get back to the modifier version of this. So there we are. So let's check the array on this. Actually, I don't have merge turned on. Let's turn merge on. Now these shall be merging together properly. And let's take a look at this. So these just aren't marking matching sharp. What's going on here? There's kind of some weird double geo going on here. Might have to do with why I didn't want the merge on. That looks fine here. So let's actually turn off all these modifiers just to inspect it a little bit closer. Yeah, it looks fine here, just it looks a bit weird with the modifier on. So let's select these edges here and these edges here and mark these sharp and see if that will carry over. And of course we have custom normals on. So now it should hopefully stay there when we go over. And that's what we could have done on the first roof. It collapsed. So now let's right click this and convert to mesh. And hey, now the sharpness is on both sides, which is what we want. That's perfect. Okay. And then for these, I don't want the merges. These are actually just intersecting geometry. Yes, that's all good. All right, right click, convert to mesh. That's all good. And then delete these. Then we just join these together. All right, so now that is all good. And here is where some of the geo will mess up on the Boolean. So here's one example of that happening. So go into edit mode and select that. And actually it's easy to go into edge mode. Okay, I'm going to highlight everything again or just have it selected to more easily see it. And of course, with the mirror modifier, it kind of messes up the same on the other side. So delete that edge. All right, those edges probably won't do any harm. I'm not even sure if they'll properly import into a game engine. I'm not sure you can just have a floating edge like that in game engines. I've never tried, but might as well clean it up. All right, I like how this looks. So normally what you would do in this stage also for your assets to really get them finalized is make a whole other UV set and unwrap it for doing your light map UVs. And there's quite a few other things we can be doing to improve it. But for this tutorial, I just want to show you guys the process of making the modular assets using a trim sheet. That's what I'll be covering. So let's go ahead and call this the 8M underscore roof. And like that, everything here should be done. Let's make sure our 6M roof is, so let's turn all these on. I'm going to open up each of these folders, but keep the mod folder closed, and then turn on just the top ridge, corner ridge, 6M roof. So now we can kind of experiment with using these. So I'm going to just hit Shift-D-X and move it over. And then I'm going to, actually I'm going to go back here real quick. And then I'm going to right click and set the origin to the 3D cursor, origin 3D cursor, even though that origin technically won't go onto the game engine. And then let's rotate upon medium point. So I do Shift D, and before hitting anything else, go ahead and hit RZ90, hit enter. I can now hit Shift R to repeat the last action. So as you can see, this asset rotates perfectly all around. So we can make a roof like this in our engine if we want to. So I don't need any of this anymore, so I know that works fine. Could grab the large building here, and I'm also going to set its origin just for use inside Blender here. So origin to 3D cursor, Shift D X, let's snap it, Shift D R Z 90, and that actually does not work there right. So this one we're just going to need to move manually here, G Y here. Then select both these and hit Shift D R Z 180. And then GX here, and then GY to here. As you can see, all of these also match up perfectly. So you can kind of have a interesting pagoda structure. You need probably another asset here to make like a wall. So this is 2 meters here. So you could have a 2-meter wall module. Then you could have a corner pillar module. And you would design it the exact same way we designed all of these, just modeling, then UV unwrapping. So it's pretty easy to understand. So that's pretty neat. All right. Of course, you'd then build large buildings or whatnot in Engine. You won't want to build those inside here. You want to export them as individual parts. And we can move everything around. So once you export this out into a game engine, which everything here is now in place for a game engine, depending on what you're going to go to. So what I would do is close all these and have just one on screen and select it. Then I'd go to, oh no, I don't want that open. I go to File, Export, XP, or FBX, and then change all the parameters, which is going to be different for whatever game engine you're going to. And then it would be good to go in, and some engines will auto-generate the light map UVs, like on Unreal Engine. Though once again, you may want to go and add a second set and then really customize the light map UVs to be much better, because the in-engine UV generate just isn't quite that perfect. So to test that, I'm going to move this over to make sure the entire set actually does work, just as reinsurance. Shift D this one, and let's rotate it on Z90 and GX. Shift D, RZ90, 90, GX, press 1, Shift D, RZ180. Now let's grab the corner ridge and turn that on too. So I hit Shift D, I know I can snap this to here, and up to here, and like that. And then in Engine, you aren't going to have a mirror modifier, right? So inside Unity or Unreal, whatever you're in it, inside, you want to just duplicate this, then scale Y -1. And that is how you would mirror it in Engine. Same thing for getting these over to there, though for in this case, we can actually just do RZ180. And that got it there too. I just want to kind of show you what you would do in Engine for mirroring assets. That's just a -1 scale. And the last asset that you would do inside your engine is the top ridge. So you would just grab this, spawn it into your world, and place it. And like that, that's how you would build it inside of Unreal or Unity. And now you have a roof asset. Of course, you can mix and match it around. though I don't want that in here, so I'm going to go in a wireframe and scene delete it. Alright, and with that, I think that concludes the tutorial. So with this, you should have an understanding on how to make very large assets. You now know you don't need to make some gigantic high poly and a really high res texture to bake such a large object like you would for a proper or a gun. Those would take a high poly in baking. But your environments and your roofs will usually have trim sheets and tiling. If you make really nice trim sheets or get really nice trim sheets like from our website, you can then just model the geo, and it's a very fast workflow. So thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial.